driving for a while and you feel like you've hit a plateau and you're just not improving anymore. You've upgraded your hardware, but you're still not able to be as fast as you would like. Well, guess what? I did that too, okay? I'm as guilty as you are. And that's exactly why Racine and myself created what we call the advanced way to learn. By using the techniques that we're about to show you, we were able to win national championships, and we're now coaching real-life drivers and sim racers all across the globe. So let me tell you why you absolutely need this to improve your racing skills. On this platform, you'll go through 5 learning steps. The first one is going to be to watch video lessons so you can take in all that theory. The second step will be to answer quizzes. We've created some questions to test your knowledge. Next, you'll have to partake in challenges. Here, you'll have to prove to yourself that you can apply what you've learned. You'll go on track and you'll try to beat the instructor's lap times or sector times. Following the challenge, you'll be able to send your onboard replay so instructors and other community members can help you improve. And lastly, you can get involved in the community to meet some new teammates and learn from others. This platform is a back and forth discussion between us, the instructor, and you, the students. If you're serious about becoming the best driver out there, this is the advanced way to learn.
With the Butt Kicker Gamer 2, what you see and what you hear is what you feel. Butt Kicker. The future is feeling.
Hello everybody and welcome to a new season of Precision Racing League GT3 action. Starting off here from Monza, 9 rounds to take us to the end of 2024 in the Precision Racing League's GT3 Sprint and Fix Series over the course of a couple of hours of racing tonight. Starting here at the Temple of Speed, where straight line speed is of course going to be the most important attribute. It's myself, Ian O'Leary and Darragh Thacker. We don't have much straight line speed ourselves, but we're here anyway for the Temple of Speed. Darragh, welcome along. It's good to have you alongside me. A very, very big grid for the start of this season. Looking down the entry list already, we've got over 40 drivers in this field alone. More to come and join us in the remainder of the season as well. This is going to be a busy opening race to the Fix Series. It's going to be a busy opening race to the Sprint Series later on, I'd imagine, as well.
Yeah, with this many cars on the racetrack, the first corner of the season being the opening chicane at Monza, it could get a little bit interesting, but hopefully going to be a good night of racing all round. These guys have had a little bit of time in the off-season to maybe redial, come back stronger, and a few of the guys who maybe were looking for the championship last season but weren't quite able to get there are going to be able to refocus and try and get a championship chance going starting tonight.
Yeah, starts here at Monza, and it is going to be all about straight line speed early on because Le Mans is coming up in 1 week's time as well. The more technical circuits to come after that, though, at Indianapolis, Barcelona, Interlagos, Montreal, Watkins Glen. A bit more straight line speed required at Fuji or Sebring, but nothing quite like the top 2 circuits we've got here tonight, or in the next 2 weeks, I should say. Running all the way up until the middle of November with a week off for Thanksgiving, I'm going to presume, although I don't know my American dates very well, I apologise. It's going to be a very, very exciting season indeed. But before we get into it properly and get into the results of the qualifying session, which is coming to a close in the last 8 minutes at the moment, let's thank the sponsors that make these PRL broadcasts possible, starting with Advanced Sim Racing. Owned and operated by passionate sim racers, Advanced Sim Racing designs and builds the sturdiest and most durable aluminium profile racing simulation cockpits available in the market today. All PRL members also get a 5% discount on ASR products using the Precision 5 coupon code. Racebox offers mid to high-end button boxes for sim racing enthusiasts, from the casual gamer right up to the most meticulous sim racing driver. Competitively priced and carefully handcrafted, our button boxes are an enjoyable addition to any sim racing setup. Visit raceboxsimracing.com and get a 5% discount using the Precision 5 coupon code. Broadcast also brought to you by the Bookkicker. Bookkicker products add incredible immersion and realism to every game. Feel every nuance and truly put yourself in the driver's seat. Moradness is a performance lifestyle brand motivated by motorsport and founded by professional race car driver Daniel Morad. For more information, visit moradness.com. Mr. Hedge iRacing Photography. Capture your proudest or simply finest, proudest or simply worst moments from your hobby in up to 8K resolution. A great addition to any sim room. And finally, by Advanced Motorsports. Get ready to learn to be fast with Advanced Motorsports. Follow them on their socials to become a better driver. Big thanks to all of those that make these broadcasts possible. 5 nights a week in the PRL. We're back once again from Sunday to Thursday here, and Tuesday nights, as always, will be GT3 Racing with myself and normally Joe Peake, but Darragh Thacker is alongside me for this occasion. As you mentioned, Darragh, it is going to be all about that first chicane initially, and as I always say at Monza, you don't want to qualify well here because you're scared about not being able to overtake. That's not going to be a problem. You are scared, though, about getting caught up in that first lap pile-up, which may come, and the chances are reduced if you qualify that little bit better.
Yeah, and I think we're going to see a few cars all over the road down at the opening couple of corners. Drivers trying to find their way through without getting caught up in any kind of incidents. We'll often see drivers go wide, deep at turn 1, just to avoid anybody in behind, maybe misjudging the concertina effect. But for the guys at the front, it's going to be a little bit uncomfortable driving on the mirrors all the way into that braking zone. I think the safest place to be, realistically, is starting last, although nobody wants to do that at the start of the season.
I used to do that. Yeah. Did you know I used to drive in this series? You probably do, but anyway, I'll say it anyway. I don't know what my best result was, by the way. Don't ask me, but I did legitimately get into about 11th at Phillip Island once before I Well, I'll let you fill in the gaps as to what I might have done from 11th at Phillip Island. Anyway, I no longer race in this series, as you can tell, and I'll leave it to the professionals, of which these drivers are. I mean, GT3 racing is as healthy as ever in iRacing, and especially the PRL as well. Not every series can boast fields like this, but and the Fix Series actually couldn't back in the day. I only got a entry into the latter portion of that season because there weren't that many people and towards the end of the season, and there were spaces, which was nice. But you know, you're not going to get many spaces in this league anymore. It's a very well attended league. It's a very well run league, of course, and we really enjoy it here at the PRL. But it's extremely busy, and shows that iRacing GT3 racing is in as good a health as it's ever been, arguably.
Yeah, I think particularly for the GT3s, it is such a popular car with so many of the drivers, so almost unsurprising to see so many drivers here this evening, and good to see a nice split in terms of the categories that we'll have here as well, and nice to see the likes of Kevin Santana putting it up right near the top of the timesheets at this point in the qualifying session. But it's also worth noting in the PRL, with the GT3 series that is going to be on a Thursday night now, that was on a Monday night, these drivers have extra chance to use these cars, so there's definitely some crossover that happens between those series, and lots of drivers will know each other very well and will just turn up quite regularly. And it is great to see because you know, this series is so well attended that we're never short of action, we're never short of storylines, and we really are lucky in that regard.
Absolutely. You mentioned Kevin Santana. He is currently on pole in the AM field as things stand, but he's been forced out of the McLaren 12C. Can you believe it? The game's gone, as they say. Kevin Santana's not in the 12C, and I'm personally disappointed about it. Instead, it's been, of course, replaced by this new McLaren 720S GT3 Evo, which seems to have been taken up quite well, actually, with the drivers in the PRL field. I can spot 17 in this field here, and in fact, it is one of the big cars of choice, alongside the Ferrari. The Ferrari and McLarens make up the top 11 in this session at the moment. We've got some Corvettes further down, even an Audi, a Mustang, Porsche, BMW, all represented. Great variety, but it is seemingly McLaren and Ferrari who are having the most joy around here. I'm not going to particularly take this as a look as to what the season's going to be like, though, because as I mentioned, this round and Le Mans is going to have much higher emphasis on straight line speed than almost any of the other 7 rounds.
And it's an interesting way to start out the season, isn't it? With those two heavily frontline speed circuits, we get to more technical circuits later on into the season. But again, ending at Sebring, it's kind of a bit of a mix, isn't it? You need that frontline speed, but it is also somewhat downforce dependent. But it will be interesting just to see how the drivers' picks will fare over the season, because of course, you know, they're going to have to be able to adapt to different conditions with different kind of circuits. If you've got the straight line speed cars early on in the season, you might find you're struggling a little bit later. But it also means we may have a bit of a championship picture that will run throughout the season, with a couple of drivers maybe coming back into it as the season progresses. And that's what we want. A 9-round season, it may sometimes feel like the championship gets away from some drivers after only 4 or 5 weeks. But, you know, if you have that kind of mix, we might see the championship go all the way to the final round.
Jay Steffi's yet to take his barcode off his new McLaren. I presume that's what they use to scan it on the way out the supermarket when you buy one of these. I don't really know why that's there, to be honest with you. Anyway, he's in 12th place, just been pushed down because Terry Haag there jumped up the field. I said it was all McLarens and Ferraris. He's just circumvented that by moving into 2nd place. Maybe the reasons are ahead of him here, because slipstreaming at Monza, especially in qualifying, is always a fixture. Just wonder whether he got a bit of help there to his 2nd position. I'm certainly going to guess William Fenson got some help to half a second ahead of the rest of the field. The next half a second covers the next 14 drivers. I can't imagine Fenson is legitimately half a second quicker than absolutely everybody else.
It would be very impressive if he was, but yeah, I'm not too sure what kind of help he got on that lap. But the 48.3 is a very strong lap time indeed. I think it's going to be tough anybody to beat that. I have to say, when I saw Terry Haag come up here, I know you will understand what I mean, but for our American viewers, there's a soccer manager, the Manchester United manager, is called Erik ten Hag, and I had a very big moment there because I got very confused. But no, Terry Haag doing very well in P2, but that gap at the front, it's big, but we're seeing lots of slipstreaming going on between these cars. It's just going to be interesting. Well, it would be interesting to know how close William Benson was to a car behind. Maybe did he get help at one point in the lap? But yeah, it's a massive gap though to gain over a relatively short lap time in the grand scheme of things.
I can't promise all season long not to say Eric Ten Hag at least once. You know, just give me a pass every week, please, because it is going to happen. I'm going to guess. And you can see, by the way, just to continue the slipstreaming point, a couple of Corvette teammates in the background of this shot here, helping one another as we're following Jeff Cuffold at the moment in the number 65 Ferrari. And as I've said, it does seem to be one of those stronger circuits for the Ferrari. The straight line speed here at Monza, clearly something to its liking. And we do see, even in a BOP category like GT3, there's only so much you can do to balance the cars. I remember in GT World Championship competition a long time ago in iRacing that the BMW Z4 always used to struggle around here, and even the top teams like VRS Coanda, who were driving in that series at the time, could only muster maybe the back end of a top 10 with the BMW, and that was seen as a very good day. It was the McLarens that would really have their day in the sun here at Monza when it used to open the GT World Championship all those years ago when Darragh was a mere child, and so was I, actually. Back about 8 years ago. Anyway, I try not to use that gag too many times tonight as well, but no promises there either. Colin McKenzie leading the line here on the way in towards the parabolica. He's 7th at the moment in the number 15 Ferrari. Doesn't need a huge improvement here to even get up onto the front row, but since he is leading the line, I'm not sure how much of an improvement he can really muster. Let's see as he makes his way up towards the line. Could he at least get near Kevin Santana for the pole position in AM? The answer to that is not quite. He was pretty close, but not quite. There is Santana, who looks like he's going to take AM pole.
Yeah, very good job for the 137 car, and good to put it up in P5 overall as well for the AM drivers. So, you know, lots of competition I think we're going to see between some of the AM and Pro drivers in that top 10 with quite a clear split. You've got Santana, McKenzie, Davison, Luna, and then a big gap back to the number 34 of Pete Megier. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how those four fight, because if they start to trip over each other, it could open the door for a couple of the drivers who were just absolutely nowhere in terms of this qualifying session, and will be a few rows back on the grid from the top four.
Well, the checker flag waves, and that looks like it's pretty much it as far as the session goes. Everybody, indeed, is in pit lane. We've had 44 qualifiers, 3 other drivers who are maybe going to take the start, but are not going to take the circuit for qualifying. So 47 as things stand, and a real mix of drivers as well. Just scroll down to the bottom to spot Luke Christian, by the way, in 43rd overall and 23rd in the Pro class. He was part of the opening PRL Cup Series round that was held on Sunday night at Bristol. Made a pretty bold call on tyres before the last restart, but it didn't quite pay off for him, unfortunately. He finished towards the lower end of the top 10 on that night. As I mentioned, from now until at the end of November, we've got 9 weeks of consecutive, pretty much, other than Thanksgiving, racing here on RaceSpotTV in the Precision Racing League, almost at same time every night, about 9 p.m. Eastern, or 8:30 Eastern as we went live today. We'll be going live with more PRL action for you, so I hope that you will join us for that most nights a week if possible, because it's a great collection of series to cover. Let's go on board though with the pole lap from William Benson. We're going to get our answer here as to whether he got actual help here in terms of slipstream, or whether it was just very good driving as he goes down towards turn number 1 here on his on the fastest lap of the session.
Yeah, big gap to the car in front going down towards the Rettifilio, so if any help is going to come, it is going to be right at the end of the lap, but bouncing your way through turn 1 and turn 2, really using all of the curb as you can and trying to just about get towards the gravel on the outside without dipping any kind of wheel into it, just to gain every single mile an hour as you get into Curva Grande. Such an important exit zone out of the Rettifilio, and then you come into the Della Roger, which is probably a little bit trickier than the Rettifilio, difficult to pick your braking zone and difficult to really get the car in the right place for this left-right combination. Once again, bouncing over the curves on the inside of both the left and the right, and then you get towards the Lesmos, but he does start look like he's getting a little bit on that car in front of you.
He does, and but at the moment we're not seeing sort of half a second slipstream worth. I've got to say, this just looks like a very good and clean lap from Fenson. Just bangs it down into 3rd briefly for the exit there off of Lesmo 2, but not even really using all the road. It's just a very calm lap and almost conservative lap in some ways, where he's just trying to get a lap on the board, but I bet this run through Ascari is going to be quick. Let's have a look. From 6th gear, gets down into 4th, keeps the revs relatively low. It's all about the exit from here, of course. Jumping over that curve, there is a bit of slowing up just up ahead, and he will use the slipstream of that McLaren, but there won't be much in that either. Just taking what he can, really. It's a bit of a distant tow, to be honest. Down in towards the Parabolica now, and down into 3rd gear, which you very rarely go lower than, really, around Monza. It is a very fast circuit, as the Temple of Speed name suggests. He pulls it all the way to the right-hand side, as everybody does, to cut off the distance. And there you have it. There was pole. There was not half a second's worth of slipstream involved in that, I would argue.
No, absolutely not. That's just a fantastic lap from the number 88 car, and really quite a marker that everybody else is going to have to follow, because if anybody has seen that, on the fact that that is a pure pace lap, I might worry some of the other drivers, because, I mean, you were mentioning during the qualifying session there was half a second between himself and second, and then the same gap covered second down to about 16th, 17th. So really, quite an impressive pole lap, and maybe a sign of things to come from William Benson.
Yep, it's his second ever pole in PRL history, and as is, well, I'm going to presume relative, Eric Benson says, what a lap from William. Do tell us what relation you are, indeed, if you are at all. Conditions on the circuit, 68 on the circuit. That's low 20s, I think, in terms of Celsius, if you're that way inclined. 20 to 10 in the morning, 21st of September. Because it's the last season of a year, Darrow, we shouldn't be seeing too many days where the track conditions are astronomical. However, we are going to the other side of the world a couple of occasions, and it can get very hot in Interlagos and Fuji, especially on the other parts of the world other than Europe and North America that we're used to going racing at so often. So maybe it'll get warm there, but actually track temperatures and tyre temperatures shouldn't be a huge talking point this season, because by the time we're ending the season it'll be the end of November and it should be quite cold.
Yeah, and I mean, quite a few races in Europe as well, not just in this series, but generally in the PRL, except for, of course, the oval racing, means that, yeah, I think the tyre temperature is going to be down. Drivers are going to have less to think about, aren't they? So it's going to be a little bit easier in that regard, but big fields are really going to keep them on their toes. I don't really know how much they would have been thinking heavily about things like tyre temps in seasons gone by when you've had so many cars around you. But it definitely does mean that there is a little bit of weight lifted off the shoulders of the drivers for this season, and really means that the drivers can just focus on trying to get that out-and-out pace throughout the entire of the season, and focusing on this race to start off, because as you said, with temperatures not being astronomical, it can kind of give the drivers a little bit more of an easy introduction into the season. There's not too much going on, although I think a lot of the cars around these guys are going to keep them very much awake.
It's less about the tyres lasting to the end, because it's only a 35-minute race. However, it's more about keeping the tyres in an adequate window for you to go quickly. That's the real concern over a hot race, but that's not applying here today, and you wouldn't imagine applying next time round either at Le Mans. Not many drivers out there for warm-up at the moment. Only Nicholas Johnson has decided to go over the line, but other than that, it's been a quiet warm-up session, and I've just been taking a few deep breaths, because this grid I'm about to go through is going to be breathless and long. So let's give it a go. William Fenton on pole by some distance, with Eric Terry Hagen second position, the first of the Mustangs. The first of the Ferraris comes with Jeff Kofod alongside Israel Osborne, and then the first of the AMs, Kevin Santana, is alongside Tyler Graff. Row 4 is made up of Colin McKenzie and Luke Davis, with Ryan Luna and David Bush III rounding up the top 10. Jake Vasconcelos is in 11th, ahead of Tony Costello, who rounds out row 6. Jake Steffi in the purple and green McLaren is 13th, ahead of Matt Sheriff, with Kyle Colbert in 15th and Pete Measure in 16th. Sully Sad and Phoenix Feliz are sharing row 9, two PRL stalwarts. Lucas Anguin and Joshua Lewis round out the top 20, with Carsten Quaint and Waldo Walden on row 11. Buck Hamilton and Ian Cabana are on row 12. 25th is Andrew Trickett, with Park Hilliard in 26th. Andre Benatti and Dale Pedersen next up, followed by Robert Jeffries and Andre Venaro in the 15th row. Joel Peguero and Nicholas Johnson, who was the only driver out in warm-up, is 32nd. Dino Villa and Ryan Chandler are on row 17, ahead of Alex Wright and Thomas Rep. 37th is Jeff Lubish and Sam Smeltzer. It will be Barry Cochrane in 39th, ahead of Regan Chandler, who rounds out the top 40. Marshall Hurtado will be in 41st, ahead of Mark Bray, with Luke Christian, the Cup Series driver, in 43rd, alongside Clarence Rosser. Christopher Ryan, Sean Mulholland and Kevin Bergqvist all failed to qualify. Well, not failed to qualify, but just didn't. We'll see if they actually get into the race. It looks like Kevin Bergqvist is. Got my doubts about Christopher Ryan's and Sean Mulholland's. And also Ian Cabana, who did qualify, seems to be starting from pit lane. Maybe, Dara, a sensible choice. As you were saying, the only safe place to be is at the back, but nobody ideally wants to start at the back. It's about staying at the front, staying in the front group, and seeing what you can do about toppling William Fenton. That's what it feels like this race is going to be about.
Yeah, and I think this race is really going to be about the drivers adjusting to a brand new season and getting themselves back into the thought process of the championship. Some of these guys, of course, were high-flying last season. Some of them may have had a poor start and never able to get going, as they're going off a little bit in the background, which you might expect with so many cars on the circuit. But this is a fresh slate for all of the drivers here, even if you had a bad qualifying. With so many cars, particularly down into turn one, realistically, anything can happen. Tens of positions could be gained if you pick the right line, depending on what happens. But for a lot of these guys, I think survival in the opening couple of corners is mission one, and they'll go about the rest of the race from there.
Yeah, this is going to be a big moment of the season, going down in towards turn number one, that's for sure. A new PRL GT3 Fix Series about to get liftoff here at Monza, the Temple of Speed for the curtain raiser in this new championship. Everybody's so eager to get going in the background, almost hitting one another as they get to the green. But now it waves, and William Fenton gets a new GT3 Fix Series underway here at Monza. Down in towards turn number one, he's going to get the clean line himself. But what about everybody else? It's side by side for second as the Mustang on the outside of Terry Hogg just gets overtaken for second place, dropping down to third immediately at the hands of Jeff Cuffold, who moves up into that second position. Everybody filters through the first chicane nicely. It's been a sensible start from the 44 drivers getting underway here at the start of this season.
Yeah, incredibly well-mannered. No one really wanting to take too many risks into the opening chicane, but into the second chicane again. Everyone very well-mannered. Only side-by-side at the back end of the top 10 as they bounce their way through the Della Roger. A couple of cars climbing all over those curbs as Cowfold down the inside. What a move in the opening lap. Benson, though.
He's gone deep, Coffold has gone deep, and here comes Terry Hogg as well down the inside, in towards Lesmo 2, and through it that goes the Mustang again. Israel Osborne is going to try and follow through here, but they can't afford to let Benson get away, who made an error in the second chicane, and he knows it as well. He's trying to keep this battle for second going. Terry Hogg is going to get power past here in the Ford Mustang, but they're remaining side by side. Up the inside goes Coffold into Ascari, and he holds on to second place, but look at the gap that's created to the pole sitter. William Fenton is clear.
Very deep as well from Cowfold into the start of the Ascari chicane, which has hurt him all the way up to now. He is still losing a little bit of time as here comes Eric Terry Hogg, but Isaiah Osborne is going to the inside of the number 89 as they go into the parabolica for the opening time.
Wow, that was a pretty narrow window of opportunity to go down for one of the leading Ferraris in the race. Look at this further down, by the way. That's not a replay, what we were just watching there in the main screen. That was the midfield. That's how long this field is stretched out, over quarter of a minute after just one lap. Here goes the slipstreaming games on the way towards turn number one for the second time. First time at full speed for Israel Osborne down the inside of Terry Hogg. And oh, there's a big stack up, huge stack up into the first chicane. And one of the casualties, I'm afraid, is the Jay Steffi, the purple and green McLaren. Not sure why that latter part of the group came with so much speed, but it certainly caused its fair share of problems into the first chicane.
Yeah, everyone's so cautious on lap one, maybe a little bit more aggression in the tank for lap two, but coming up short for a couple of the drivers and giving an opportunity for a couple more. Two cars into the wall and one barrel rolling.
Huge, oh my goodness, it's a huge smash at the Curva Grande, and the car comes back onto the road. Everybody scatters to avoid, including into the grass, but they're not all going to avoid. Another big smash on the way towards the second chicane. Another three drivers involved, two Porsches and a Ferrari, with bodywork flying everywhere and smoke pouring onto the circuit as well. A disastrous Curva Grande, a disastrous second lap. As he said, a great first lap as far as caution and as far as clean race. iRacing goes, but a disastrous second lap as Jay Steffi, Joshua Lewis, Waldo Warden and Andrew Trickett are the four first of many drivers who will have to come down pit lane.
Yeah, maybe just two cars locking together there as they made their way through Curva Grande. They just dragged each other off into the outside wall, and from there, both of them are passengers. There was nothing that either of them could have done at that point. And drivers just trying to go left, trying to go right, getting out of the way. But with so many cars on the circuit, so many guys were unsighted. 3 wide into Parabolica. Are they all going to make it out of there alive? There's a bit of a front end missing from the number 55 car. That red and black car, you can see it in the picture there. They're still 2 by 2. Noah's Ark formation. Cars coming into pit road. Cars staying out with a little bit of damage. And this is far from over in the opening stages. They're 3 wide once again down the main stretch. It's going to be difficult down in towards the opening chicane, but I think they're only going to make it 2 wide.
That's Carsten Quint, by the way, with no front end, and he's staying out with pretty significant damage here into the first chicane. He'll hold on to his position as well. Just in behind, the big BMW is Park Hilliard, just getting ahead of Andre Benatti there in the McLaren. So it's been a very lively start indeed to the first 5 minutes. Let's have a look at what happened on lap 2. Jay Steffi broke way too late there, got into the back of one of the McLarens and damaged his own suspension and steering arm so severely that he could no longer really turn. This was further back on the second lap. Joe Peguero unfortunately disconnects entirely. It was Waldo Warden into huge contact here, and this is gymnastics like you've never seen it before. Power rolling onto the circuit in the case of the Corvette of Warden. He would have had a sickening view of that, I'm afraid. And there was nothing he could do to prevent himself from getting into the middle of the road. Look at that. Huge contact with Andrew Trickett is the Porsche driver. And then Walden can't do anything to stop the Corvette rolling into the middle of the road. And until very late on there, he still couldn't really escape from the circuit, and so was collected by 3 more.
Some early qualifying attempts, it seems, for the next Olympics in the gymnastics, because that was quite severe. This was the view on board from the 514 Andrew Trickett. I mean, that is just sky and tarmac, and then you find yourself looking at the barrier, feeling a little bit safer than you were before. This is Ian Cabana as well, just getting caught up in it and then going sideways all the way to the corner, actually getting to a service road pretty nicely if that was real life, albeit I think the car in real life would be a little bit more damaged than it appears in the sim.
Late avoidance here from Mark Bray. Oh, who got hit by someone else who couldn't avoid Walden. Was it Cabana maybe he was hit by, or the other Porsche who was involved there? I'm not sure. But dear oh dear, Mark Bray having to rejoin there as well. What you were saying, by the way, about starting from the pit lane. There you go, there's the off-board view. What you were saying about starting from the pit lane being a safe choice has maybe not come through for Ian Cabana in the end, because the lap 1 was okay. It was lap 2 where he needed to be worried. It was Clarence Rosa who lost a lot of bodywork there, I'm afraid, in the Porsche. Collided with Walden and some of the others. This is the view on board. How much can Clarence really see? Not a lot, and actually avoided the initial smash, but lost control of the car, which was the main problem there.
Yeah, trying to go left then right, just trying to go the right way, but the car was coming back across the circuit, and you couldn't really pick the right line without too much. I was just about to mention this. Isaiah Osborne, I saw it on the inset, getting all out of sorts into the opening chicane, breaking too deep, and went from the battle for P2 all the way down to what is now P8, so slipping down the order in a way that I don't think the number 7 would have wanted at this stage of the race. But even if they're single filing out at the front, they're still 2 by 2. I'd say in the mid-pack, but P16 is still the top third, isn't it, in this grid. They're going to work their way through Ascari, a couple of drivers a little bit more offline than they'd want to be, and they're going to emerge from the Ascari chicane nearly 2 wide down towards Parabolica.
Oh, what an interesting opening 10 minutes to the season it's been. Carsten Quint is still out there on the circuit with a very damaged looking McLaren. So damaged I can barely tell it's a McLaren, but it just about is. He's running around the outside of his less damaged McLaren teammate there alongside him, and getting pushed now by a teammate of Waldo Warden. I don't think it is actually Warden himself, but look at this. 3 wide over the line again here. Moving to the outside line. One of the Corvettes trying to make its way through, and we'll have to pull out. Oh no! One of the McLarens gets it wrong, and we've avoided disaster there. Thank goodness, because Andre Benatti, I think it was, broke way too late in towards the first chicane, and he's very fortunate there was a gap there for him to slot into and not T-bone anybody.
Yeah, good foresight, actually, just to get a little bit further to the inside to try and make sure that nobody was hurt with that move. Lucky, really, to get away with it, but very deep and far too late on the brakes. Missing the braking zone clearly, but being able to, you know, style it out and get out of it without losing too much time and positions. But they're still fighting a little bit further up. 2 wide into Lesmo, 1 could be brave, not quite 3 wide that we have seen in the past. But these guys just trying to get through what still is the opening stages, not even 10 minutes into this race. And these guys fighting for still some good positions towards the top 20 in such a large field. And especially with some of these guys being pros and some of them being AMs, the AM drivers are fighting over many more points than the pro drivers will be.
Absolutely. Oh dear, that wasn't a good line for Felix Feliz, I'm afraid, for the first part of Ascari. And so Kyle Corbett tries to take advantage. Oh, goodness. They don't want to make contact through there. There's a wall ready to collect you, and there Corbett absolutely knows it, because he flashes the lights pretty vigorously at his fellow Corvette driver. I guess they're trying to catch this group up ahead, but the normal sort of group racing that it's not really materialised here at Monza this time around. William Fenton's leading by 1.5 seconds. Jeff Coulthard has 1.5 seconds over Eric Terry Haag. Then we've got a bit of a group, 4 drivers, in it, with Santana, Graf and McKenzie involved. Then Jake Vasconcelos has got Azariah Osborne. David Bush III and Matt Sheriff are going side by side for 9th place there, and that's been resolved as well. So it's not really the big group at the front of the race like we're used to seeing here at Monza.
No, they have spaced out a bit, haven't they? With the top 10, I mean, it's still 9 seconds. Is, oh my word, there's almost carnage down towards the right of Filio once again. Ryan Chandler trying to go around the outside, I do believe, as they make their way down in towards Curva Grande once again, or he's actually going to be on the outside in Curva Grande. This could end badly. We've seen it end badly so far in this race, but I think they're just about going to be able to get their way through, leaving each other a lot of room and giving each other a lot of respect on their way in towards the Della Roger. Inside line for the number 75 car, but it'll turn to the outside into the second part of the chicane, and I think that position will be lost, but they're still fighting, and it could be 3 wide into the corner.
Oh, don't do that. It's a bit of a narrow section of the circuit, that's for sure. Backing out rather sensibly there, the McLaren. Kevin Santana's lost the lead in AM, by the way, dropping behind not only Tyler Graf, who's not in the AM class, but also dropping behind Colin McKenzie, who now leads. Not sure what happened there to Santana, but he is at the final of the drivers in that group. There he is on board with the McLaren driver now. As I say, don't know what happened, but he's arguably dropped into better fuel-saving position, so it might be a silver lining to this.
Yeah, I noticed that he lost the position to Tyler Graf, but it was a little bit longer before he lost it to Colin McKenzie, so clearly not just a single mistake, but maybe a little bit of a loss of time or a couple of mistakes combining. But these two, McKenzie and Santana, realistically are fighting it out between them. Luke Davis is down in P11 and Pete Megier, I should say, down in P13, but they're a little bit further back, and if these guys can keep it clean between themselves, they are going to be fighting for the win in the AM class. The only issue is, look at how close Colin McKenzie is to the back of Tyler Graf. Kevin Santana cannot really afford the number 15 to get ahead of the number 77 and create a bit of a buffer between them.
Into the second chicane on replay. This is what happened. Was it a slowdown penalty? I suspect it was. There he is, pulling off on the exit of the second chicane. That's something we haven't really talked about yet, but it can really strike here at Monza. And goodness me, look at this battle for 17th, I believe, 16th. Pocilid on the inside here of Van Nguyen, who's trying to go around the outside and get up a place here. They try and be respectful and give each other room through the second chicane, but it costs them so much time. Carson Quint says, stuff all this, I'm going down the inside, and no, doesn't quite manage it. The Audi runs around the outside and holds on to 17th. But look at the time gained by those behind. The 79 Porsche back down the inside into Lesmo 2. And then the McLaren jumping through. Oh, through the middle. Goodness me, you do not see that very often. But Dale Pedersen moves through into what is 18th position as a result of a very weird battle, I've got to say.
I think a lot of these battles are feeling quite weird. They're just, climbing all over each other into some of these corners, battling in places where you wouldn't necessarily expect to see cars going side by side at Monza. But this battle has been going on for the past 10 minutes at least, and will continue as these guys, on similar pace as we definitely saw in qualifying, not able to really gain away from each other in the slipstream, keeping them in a nice tight bunch. In behind, big crash on the exit of Ascari. Not too sure who that was, but a car did go off quite majorly on the exit.
Yeah. and a couple involved. There's a Porsche there without a front end. There's a Porsche now back to pit lane. I'm afraid it's Jeff Lubisch. Jeff Broken Wing Racing, that's quite good. I've not seen that team name before. Quite apt now as well. He's down to 36th, I'm afraid, after that incident. By the way, we've had 10 drivers now with the addition of Jeff Lubisch of the 45 who started into the pit lane. This is why Lubisch had to come in. Oh, so it was contact as well with one of the Corvettes. The Porsche that had front end damage has nothing to do with it, but it was Regan Chandler who was also involved, who I didn't quite spot at the time. It was a side-by-side moment for Ascari. Can we call that two separate incidents? Or maybe two separate incidents, product of the same car ahead of them? I don't really know how to call that one, to be honest.
Yeah, it didn't look... they weren't, immediately connected to each other, those two. So I think it was two slightly separate incidents. But, I mean, it looked for all the world like Lubick had it gathered up there before ending up spinning around again with a snap on the rear end. But unfortunate for those guys is, I mean, it is a symptom of racing through Ascari. It's not the easiest part of racetrack in the world to go side by side or, well, to go around, as some drivers create different lines through there. I think that's the original layout, that one was.
Kevin Santana there making sandcastles on the outside of Ascari, I'm afraid, and so that gives Mackenzie a big lead. All he's got to do now, effectively, is just sit. I say all he's got to do is, if it's easy, it's obviously not, but sit behind Eric Terry Hagen, Tyler Graf, and save the fuel off of them and continue to let them carry you away with the AM lead at the moment, because that's what they're doing. 5 seconds now the margin with that Santana mistake.
And with the 4 cars between could be so crucial as well, because we've seen how difficult it is to get through on cars and then start to pull away, and we might see that happen again. Tyler Graf, though, hoping to pull away in P3 after he's now got through on Eric Terry Haag into the opening chicane. Colin McKenzie sitting right on the back of this duo and doing a very good job in the AM lead. Of course, got through on Kevin Santana with his slowdown penalty and hasn't really looked back since. He hasn't really had to look on his mirrors whatsoever. He might have to soon with Raya Osborne coming back through the field after his mistake down at the Rettifilio. But at the moment, Tyler Graf doing a good job, but the battle for P3 is not going to go away anytime soon.
It's been a great recovery from Osborne, and he's looking to return to the top 5 pretty quickly, or pretty soon, I should say, as well. We're approaching half distance, by the way, at the end of the next lap, so not this one. We should be at half distance in terms of laps. We're expecting 20 laps in the opening round of the PRL GT3 Fix Series season, and this is the end of lap 9 coming up here in a few moments' time. The Santana group now is battling for 9th place, involving David Busterford and Tony Costello, but perhaps more importantly for the AM story, Luke Davis, who we're on board with, and Pete Messier as well. Nick McLaughlin's just come into YouTube chat, by the way, to laud the praises of the Lunatic team, obviously, and he says that everyone likes PB&J, which is not true, but anyway, makes me violently ill. Anyway, that's a separate issue. On board with Davis, and he will feel he's really got a chance now for second.
I think he will. I mean, this is a race where we're not really going to have to call it till the end. Lots is going on all at once. Drivers are prone, it seems, to picking up maybe a slowdown here and there, and if you can go wide a couple of times in a lap and combine a couple of those mistakes, you might find yourself falling back a little bit further than you'd want to be. I can see in the rearview mirror of Luke Davis that he's coming under heavy pressure from Pete Messier as they're going side by side up in front as well. 2 by 2, then they will go into the corner. That'll be Tony Costello going for P10 and the 34 of Pete Messier getting through on Luke Davies, and that is for a podium spot in the AM category. So big moves going on for the 34 car.
I like your quite loose use of the word mirror, but I'll take your point. Very old-fashioned of you to presume it's a mirror. But we use cameras these days. It's a digital world. Pete Messier makes his way up onto the podium just for the moment. And also camera-possessing McLaren. Do many of these cars even have a mirror anymore, other than the actual wing mirrors, I suppose, which are still real for now? But anyway, that's a discussion for another day. Eric Terry Haag drops a couple of positions then outside the top 5. He's already been passed by Graf in the Mustangers. Terry Haag, and we saw that earlier, but now he's dropped behind Mackenzie and Israel Osborne, who he's quite directly behind here. Actually, I'm going to assume that's a slowdown penalty out the second chicane.
And not the first one we'll have seen there, isn't it? Where we saw that happen to Kevin Santana, and a difficult place to really keep it within the track limits. You are really pushing it there. Oh, maybe a little bit of a move there. If that's Colin McKenzie weaving to try and get the move done on Tyler Graff. I'm not too sure what was going on there with the 15 car. Maybe just trying to get into the wing mirrors of Tyler Graff, but really was going side to side on the racetrack. They're trying to find a line. It put me off, and I think he hoped that it put Tyler Graff off as well, as Graff come into the pit lane with 15 minutes to go.
Yeah, it has put him off because he's now gone into the pit lane at half distance pretty much exactly. It could be just over half distance. We'll see if we get 19 or 20 laps in this race into the next 16 and a half minutes. Down into turn 1 again. Zara Osborne's recovery to the top 5 again is complete, and he now possesses 4th position. I mean, you were correct, by the way. Colin McKenzie was the driver who was weaving around all over the back of Tyler Graff, but I can't get my head around why on earth he would do that. You know, he's in a big AM lead, even bigger now that Kevin Santana has come into pit lane. As I said earlier, all he has to do is save fuel and let the pros carry him to an AM victory. Surely, I really don't understand being so aggressively in the mirrors of a pro driver in front of him.
Neither can I. I mean, something may have happened in the corner before. Colin McKenzie was looking really quick on the back of him. Maybe that was his alternative to flashing the lights. I really don't know. But for the 15 to be doing that, weaving side to side, it looked like he was going for the move briefly, but then when we saw them get into the corner, he was a couple of car lengths back. So, yeah, very weird to see from Colin McKenzie. We may be able to talk to him later and ask him what he was doing, but I don't think I've ever seen that before myself.
No, I haven't either. Very bizarre. Through Scari go the battle for 5th position, which is being left behind by Zara Osborne. I mentioned in qualifying that Terry Harger was one of the best non-McLaren or Ferrari drivers in the field. Well, I think we're starting to see over the course of race pace that actually this Mustang doesn't really have a lot for the McLaren and the Ferrari. He's getting left behind by Osborne, who admittedly has been quick himself, but even so, the Mustang does seem to be beginning to falter as the drivers come into pit lane. Looks like they're pretty much on the limit of fuel. Not a single driver has gone through and completed the lap on the circuit just yet.
Yeah, can William Fenton do a lights to flag victory? That's the question. Will anybody stay out? He's into the pit box, and we'll see how long his pit stop does take. He's you'd heavily suggest that he'll be able to come out of everybody who is pitted, and everybody is pitting. The top 16 have come in, and more are following. The pit lane is as busy as it ever will be, I think, here at Monza. William Fenton will get out of the pit box, and will get out into the lead. And, I mean, unless something really bad happens here for the 88 car, a dominant display could mean that he leads from the lights to the flag.
Osborne right behind McKenzie there, side by side out the pit lane further back, as that was Pete Measure, I think, going side by side with Nguyen. Not sure though, couldn't tell you for sure. Luke Davis out on the circuit continues on and will retain second here. Where has Kevin Santana got to? He made a stop not so long ago, and indeed on the previous lap, but he seems to have dropped quite a bit of time to Santana. Where is he in the field? I can't find him just for the moment. There he is. 12th position. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, right behind Davies. Sorry, I was looking at the timing screen. I know everyone at home could just watch him on screen. I was looking at another screen at the time. Apologies. Santana drops back, and he's got to slow down by the looks of things to serve around the Curva Grande here. But what a disappointment for him. Dropping time in the pit stop phase. Slow down immediately here. Dive bomb by Park Hilliard. It's not been a good race for Santana, really, quite apart from the fact he had a good starting position, good qualifying. After that, it's been a bit downhill.
Yeah, the only real silver lining is that he's still in the top 3 in class. Of course, there were quite a few pro or AM drivers, I should say, up in that top 10 after qualifying, but they've all kind of dropped back throughout the race. Kevin Santana, one of those, but still managing to keep himself in the top 16 and in 15th. He's 3rd overall in the AM category. That's really the silver lining for him, looking to get the move back on Park Hilliard down in towards Ascari, but I think he's going to think better of it this time around. I think at this point with him not having the best of races, priority has to be just conserving what he's got at the moment, not losing too many more positions from now, because Luke Davis is now 7 seconds up the road for P2. It's going to take quite a lot to get him in the next 12.5 minutes, and I think for Kevin Santana, getting a P3 from this point onwards would be a very good result.
Oh, and off! Oh, brake failure! Big smash for Kevin Santana! And he's going to roll back onto the road. He's got no brakes. He's going to roll back onto the road again. Oh, goodness. Thankfully, there was a gap in the road. but Kevin Santana, I think, has lost his brake pedal. Maybe that suggests why he's been dropping back for the last 20 minutes or so. I mean, I don't have any other explanation other than that was a brake failure. There just was no deceleration there.
You know, I'm really glad I said that P3 was a really good option for him for the rest of the race seconds before that happened. Really disappointing for him. But yeah, like you said, there doesn't seem to be really any other explanation than that, particularly as he bounced across the road and the car didn't stop as he rolled back across the racing line. So definitely looked like a brake failure. Hopefully it's not, you know, his pedals. Hopefully it's, you know, it's something else. But yeah, that's a massive hit, and you can just see him rolling back. Really lucky not to hit anybody else, and that he actually got into a little gap between a few of the cars, because that could have been much, much worse for a few of the drivers in behind. Because, I mean, that definitely could have been a track blocker if a couple of the cars piled up behind him.
One of those moments you're thankful this is sim racing, to be honest. That was a very nasty crash indeed down at Parabolica. Out of Lesmo 2 for Kyle Colbert there in the first of the two Corvettes you can see on your screen. It's for 12th place, followed by Felix Feliz, who's in 13th in the number 10. Then Park Hilliard, the BMW, is 14th position. These guys battling, though, for the final spot inside the top 10 in Pro. And this sort of midfield battle actually signals something else that's happening in this race, which is the just spreading out and calming down of things slightly now. We've had the pit stop phase. It's now time to race to the checkered flag. Just over 10 minutes to go to do that, but some of the positions are indeed settled as long as there are no more mistakes from here into the end.
Yeah, but I think that's, yeah, we cannot say that there won't be mistakes made to the end because of all that we've seen in the last 25 minutes. I mean, the order that we've got right now, bookmark it, because I guarantee you it will not look the same come the checkered flag. Sully Sad is looking to change it by overtaking Dale Pedersen down at turn 1. But, I mean, there are gaps that are starting to form generally after we've had that pit stop window. 2-3 seconds between a couple of the clumps of cars, but we still do get this side-by-side action like we're seeing down at turn 1. And all the way around the outside goes Sully Sad, and a great move if he gets it on the traction, which I believe he has, to get past Dale Pedersen at the Rettifilio.
Porsche well known for its good traction, and that certainly helped it on its way to 15th place there. Sully Sad, and just ahead of Dale Pedersen, although it might change again on the way towards the second chicane. Not quite. Pedersen just pulls back into line and will bounce over the curb a lot. I'm not sure he's going to get away with that. Although he does just about. Stays ahead of his fellow McLaren Costin Quint now as well, who looks like has he got a front end on that car now? He has indeed. So that's a good sign. They've replaced his front end, thankfully, and maybe now be able to go a little bit quicker, especially in a straight line now that there's not a huge parachute on the front. This is Ian Cabana, who's had a pretty miserable race so far. That look of a damaged Ferrari there probably says all you need to know about his race.
Yeah, and I think the word on the side of the car helps as well with crikey. So, I mean, it's been quite a day, isn't it, for him? While I mentioned the car, I have to say, some of the paintwork done by the drivers and the teams over the off-season has been great, because there are some fantastic liveries on the grid, and they really do stand out against each other, which makes it a little bit easier for us up here in the booth to recognise some drivers from their paint schemes, but some of them do look fantastic. Dale Pedersen is clearly bright and will be bright in the mirrors of Sully Sad, but I think for everybody behind him, the case is just trying to get that yellow car behind them, because it'll be very bright in their windscreens.
Yeah, I quite like the Pedersen livery, actually. Eric Choihart gets through on Colin McKenzie, by the way, who now seems to be backing off and just conserving an AM win here, which surely is coming his way in 8 minutes' time. There's Matt Sheriff as well, who will look to overtake McKenzie as well. Although, well, he's not rolling over just yet, is he, McKenzie? Looking one way, then the next. And again, not really sure why, but he is battling here with the Mustang, and he's got a good exit out the De La Rogia. He'll have the inside for Lesmo 1, and through he's going to go again. Well, I can't really explain the logic of this, but it is entertaining battling with Colin McKenzie again. Oh, when he's made contact now! He's made contact with the Mustang, which just about saves it. He smashes the brakes, and Matt Sheriff will overtake both of them. Here comes Tony Costello as well.
Yeah, 2 by 2 on the run down towards the Scari. There's a contact. That's Colin McKenzie into the wall. That's massive for the Pro at the AM Championship.
And he's lost his front end. How much damage is there going to be? Tony Costello needs to get out of the way as well, and he does. He's in a very awkward place now. A really high-speed part of the circuit with no space to turn around. He goes back to pit lane. Another huge crash in this race.
And all of a sudden, Luke H. Davis is into the fight for the win in the AM category. Colin McKenzie is still holding it in P9 for now, but that was not a very good moment. I think he may have got away with it. He's not losing too much time as we make our way through the final corner of the lap with Matt Sheriff and Eric Terry Hart. This is the view from Tony Costello. Oh, I think each driver will say it's the other driver's fault.
Yeah, exactly.
Bones out of that one.
I think you're absolutely right there. Although that angle there suggests that McKenzie was coming across on him. And you've got to put into context as well the contact with the Mustang that happened just before that maybe influenced the thinking. That is not very smart thinking, I'm afraid, for Sheriff and Terry Hart. Both of them getting locked together through the first chicane. Tempers are beginning to fray now for 5th position. Here comes Jake Vasconcelos in the number 11 McLaren. Let's see what he can do as he closes in on these two. Matt Sheriff is going to give this another go into the Della Roggia, and he's going to get the inside line this time round. He had the outside into the Rettifilio, but it's not going to matter. Terry Hart breaks later and holds on to 5th place again.
Yeah, good defending there from the 89 car, but these guys, they are really going at it for P5, aren't they? And it's brought the number 11 car into this, and Vasconcelos is not a name we've really talked about much in this race. He's been quietly gaining his way through. Good pit stop window as well, and now is in the fight for P5. Also wanted to quickly mention that Isaiah Osborne is fighting for P3 after, of course, going off of the track from that position and dropping all the way back to 8th. So he's doing a good recovery drive, but he's only got 5 minutes to get that spot off of Tyler Graf.
Yeah, not long now. How many laps remaining are we going to have here? Possibly 3. Although it depends when the leader crosses the line to start a new lap. I think it is going to be 3 laps to go at the end of this one with where William Fenton is. Defensive on the way towards the parabolica here for Eric Terry Hagen. Look at that, it's Vasconcelos who's moving to the outside line of his fellow McLaren, which dives to the inside. Sheriff gets so close to the back of the Mustang. Surely this is going to be the chance for Vasconcelos, who's got a much better run through there now. He's going to get the double slipstream as well, crouching behind the big Ford Mustang, punching a huge hole into the air. He's going to step into the void surely on the left-hand side here very shortly with this double slipstream. Is he going to try and go through the middle, or is Sheriff just protecting that line and hoping that he doesn't do so? And indeed he doesn't. Sheriff goes late on the brakes. This time the two cars don't get connected, and Sheriff actually pulls off a very nice move for 5th place.
Yeah, Eric Terry Hart was worried, I think, by Vasconcelos looking for an inside line, tried to go a little bit tighter than I think he otherwise would have done, and it meant that Sheriff had a great line all the way around the outside and was able to pick off that position for P5. But the slipstream that we've just seen with the advantage of the 43 is now going to shift immediately back to the number 89 car, and I think this battle is far from over. And with the battling that is ongoing, it's dragging David Bush in, and if Vasconcelos can go down the inside of Lesmo 1, Bush is going to be right in it for P5.
It is. Oh, contact! And the front McLaren goes around, smashed into by David Buster third in the Audi, who's now got a very loosely connected front bumper. And Colin McKenzie is going to gain a place out of all of this, of all people. He's been dropped by the group and he's been caught by Luke Davis here, but he will overtake the Audi by the looks of things. Oh dear, Jake Vasconcelos was driving so well. He was in the top 10 for the first time in ages, and unfortunately a spin through Lesmo 2 has demoted him outside of the top 10, and it's given David Buster third quite the damage now, along with McKenzie, who's also missing his front end.
Yeah, a couple of cars not looking the same as they did on the green flag, that's for sure. But Colin McKenzie is just trying to get it home, as I think David Bush will be right now, as they are just really limping it home. Colin McKenzie's got bigger things to worry about, though, than David Bush. Luke Davis is right into the fight now, only a second behind the leader in the AM category, and with a couple of laps still left to run, you would not put it out of the realms of possibility that Luke Davis can try and get that position for the win in the AM category. That was Vasconcelos. You have to say in that scenario as well, David Bush a complete passenger.
Oh, he was, yeah, for sure. I'm just trying to decide from that angle whether Terry Hogg came down on Vasconcelos or whether Vasconcelos went into the Mustang. But one thing is for sure, the Mustang was absolutely undeterred by that. He was it was treating it like a human. It was rock steady through Lesmo 1 there, and it couldn't be moved seemingly.
No, and yeah, I think we've seen a lot of that today. This is the view from overhead, and I mean, you can, yeah, I mean, difficult to really say how hard that Eric Terry-Hard came down there. Vasconcelos drifted a little bit off the apex, but not really that much, especially not that much to hit a contact, but difficult to really judge. These really quite tight collisions, and we're seeing quite a few of them as the drivers are really trying to fight hard for these points in the opening round. I mean, they want to get themselves off on the best foot possible for a championship charge that they hope will run all the way to the end of the season.
Luke Davis could steal a win here from Colin McKenzie. He's driving well and making his way through the field in exactly the fashion he has to here. Colin McKenzie's at the head of this train after getting past David Bush III. They're both damaged, those two cars. They're both damaged. However, they're about as quick as each other. They're just not as quick as a fully fledged GT3 at the moment. And Luke Davis is very close behind Bush on the way towards the Parabolica at the moment. We are going on to the final lap here, by the way, so there will be one more chance. And Davis goes past Bush. So the change for 8th place has happened. The AM lead is in play here, and it's already happened. Luke Davis is already through here. I said he was going to. The two are damaged here, McKenzie and Bush, and they can't do anything to hold back Luke Davis from taking a famous late victory. He pulls to the inside of McKenzie, almost using his mind games from earlier on in the race. Is he going to send it down the inside in the most extraordinary fashion here at the end of this race, or is he just going to let this slide? He's going to let it go, and Luke Davis looks like he's going to win in AM.
And he only will have led for the last couple of minutes in the entire race, as Colin McKenzie's now, I think, getting out of the way of a couple of the cars behind him. Not too sure why. Maybe a slowdown penalty for him off the exit of the corner, but weird to see him go so slowly. Maybe it's just the damage that is taking effect in the 15 car. Got to be careful, though, because Carsten Quinn, I mean, he's 6 seconds back in a few positions, but depending on how much time that Colin McKenzie loses now, it could be pretty close towards the end. But it looks like he's sticking it back in the train for now as they run their way towards Lesmo 1 and Lesmo 2. I mean, it's going to be close as well with William Fenton to see if we get an extra lap or not. This was the view from Luke H. Davis, and just the speed on the brakes.
He almost scared McKenzie into not turning in there, but well, if it works, I suppose he's in the lead now. Meanwhile, William Fenton has been away from all of this. We've barely seen a second of him throughout this race because we frankly haven't had to. He's been dominant, and he's on his way to take his 4th ever Precision Racing League race win. William Fenton wins the opening round of the PRL GT3 Fix Series at Monza in spectacular style. Who's going to join him on the podium? Graf and Osborne are going to have a side-by-side photo finish. Osborne with the run on the exit. He's going to get chased all the way to the edge of the road, but he's going to make it just about 0.03 of a second. And Osborne's recovery lands him on the podium ahead of Luke Davis, who wins for Lunatic in the AM class with a late pass for the win.
You know, I think Luke Davis is going to be absolutely delighted. He just kept his nose clean, which can't be said for the two other leaders in the race that we saw in the AM category. Colin McKenzie, I think he may have gone a little bit deep somewhere, maybe at the final corner, but he's going to stay exactly where he is. Massive for Isaiah Osborne as well to get that position on the final corner, really, on the final few meters of the race to recover to the podium, and I think he'll be very pleased to get there after dropping all the way back to P8 like he did in the opening stages, which was very difficult, but what a recovery.
Not sure what Lucas Angoon is doing in the pit lane, by the way, after the race, but anyway, going across the line in the pit lane, not really advice, but anyway, over the line go some of the others outside of the top 20. This is the 711 of Barry Cochrane in the Porsche. He is going to finish 14th in class, 31st overall. Just ahead of Sam Smeltzer, the final driver on the lead lap in a very chaotic opening to the new season. William Fenton wins by 7 seconds ahead of Jeff Cofield and Isaiah Osborne, who beats Tyler Graf to the podium. Matt Sherriff finishes on the top 5 ahead of Eric Terry-Hard, the first of the Mustangs. Luke Davis wins in AM ahead of Kyle Kerber, the first of the Corvettes, followed by the first of the Audis, followed by the first of the BMWs, David Bush III and Park Hilliard. 11th place was Felix Feliz, getting some of those places right at the very end, along with the likes of, Colin McKenzie. I've got something different. Colin McKenzie, then Felix Feliz. Sully Sad was next, followed by the McLarens of Dale Pedersen, Carson Quinn, and Jake Vasconcelos. Thomas Rep finished in 17th, 4th in class, ahead of Ryan Chandler, Andrew Venero, and Nicholas Johnson, rounding out the top 20. 21st was Robert Jeffries with Lucas Engun, who ended in the pit lane 22nd. Joel Peguero finished 23rd ahead of Luke Christian, who gains about 20 places in that race. Pete Measure was on the podium at one stage in Am. He finishes down in 25th overall. Alex Wright and Buck Hamilton, the final drivers, are within a minute of the win. Kevin Berkvist, Dino Vella and Barry Cochrane round out the top 30. Marshall Hurtado was 31st ahead of Sam Smeltzer, the final driver on the lead lap. Clarence Rosa finished in 33rd alongside Tony Costello, 1 lap down. Regan Chandler was 2 laps down. Ryan Luna and Joshua Lewis 4 down, with Jeff Lubis, Jay Steffi and Mark Bray all caught up in that second lap incident. Had to spend 5 laps of repairs. Ian Cabana and Kevin Santana needed 6 laps. Andre Berardi, Andrew Trickett and Waldo Walden all retired very early after their early incidents. Let's chat first of all to the overall winner, and that is William Fenson, who now joins us for a chat. Welcome in, William. Good to have you with us. Congratulations on the win as well. Tell us how you felt around Monza here today. You look very comfortable, and you were out on your own for a lot of that race.
Yeah, great to take the win. First race of the season. I think, once I got settled in after those first couple of laps and kicked away and had a little bit of a gap, I sort of just cruised along there. A lot of practice put in, so it was comfortable.
It's not your first win in the PRL, but it is at the start of a new season. What do you think this win's going to do for you for the rest of the season? Where do you think you can finish?
Hopefully I'll finish where I start. I think I set myself up for the best season I can have. So, I'll go for it. Keep the practice up and hope I'm there at the end.
It's the only disadvantage of starting with a win. It can only be downhill, so we hope it's not. We hope you stay up the top. Congratulations, though, on the win tonight. Enjoy it, and thanks for coming to chat to us as well.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks very much, William Fenton, with his 4th PRL win here tonight. Jeff Cufford finished in 2nd place. We'll get to Israel Osborne in a few moments' time, but Jeff Cufford, first of all. Welcome in, Jeff. Good to have you with us. 2nd place.
Yeah, thank
you in this race, 7 seconds off the win. Tell us a little bit about your race, the battles you had, the trials and tribulations. How was it?
Well, I had a very sloppy first race there with William and I both trading mistakes back and forth. And after that, it was just settling into a rhythm and just banging out the laps. It was just, there wasn't much going on, unfortunately, for my P2 place.
No, unfortunately, in the podium place, it was a little bit quiet. But what do you think this does for the rest of your season? I pose the same thing to William. He says that he hopes he finishes where he starts, obviously at the top. Is that your aim as well? Are you going for a championship this season?
Yeah, I definitely need to find a little more pace to combat William. In the practice race, I out-qualified him, but he got me as well on that one. So I need to find a little more pace to bring the race to him, and that's my goal for the next one.
Well, we look forward to seeing it next week at Le Mans. Thanks for chatting to us, and we'll see you in a week's time.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Jeff Coford there, 2nd place here tonight in the first race, followed by Israel Osborne, who finished in 3rd. An eventful race for yourself, Israel, I would say. Tell us about that run back through the field after an early little incident.
Oh, yeah, I really wasn't expecting to get 3rd at all after that incident when I was racing with Eric. I braked a little too late, blew the chicane, just had to let everyone go, and put in a nice hard charge and a good battle with Tyler Graff, and I was ready to settle for 4th, but that last lap I was able to get into the last corner, so worked out pretty good.
Yeah, he's just told us his fuel app was telling him he was going to run out of fuel, but and that's ended up saving fuel he didn't need to save. So that's a bit awkward for him. But there you go. Still a good 3rd place for yourself. I mean, how much of those passes were about staying out of trouble? Because you may not have seen all of the incidents that we saw, but there were plenty of them throughout that race. Was it about just staying out of trouble and making up the places? How much of it was down to actual passing, and how much thought did you have to go into the actual passing, and how much thought went into the actual survival?
Honestly, most of it was mainly survival. I think I only made about 2 passes through that charge through the field, honestly. Yeah, all of it was mainly just survival.
Well, you've got to do sometimes. Congratulations on the podium, and thanks for coming to chat to us.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Thanks very much. Israel Osborne there in 3rd place. And finally, Luke Davis as well, who is the AM winner for the opening round of the season. Welcome in, Luke. Good to have you with us. Were you expecting that, going on to the final lap, or the penultimate lap, I should say, to pass Colin McKenzie and take the win? I guess you were surprised, maybe, to find yourself in the lead.
Yeah, surprise is definitely a good word. No, I actually had damage for since lap 3, so I was down on speed through quite the the entire thing, so I was just trying to keep on the bumpers of anyone that would let me.
I mean, you won't be surprised to know when you passed him that Mackenzie also had his fair share of damage. I'm not sure many people didn't by the end, actually. I think that was a fairly common theme. How much do you think we can actually learn from tonight as far as the season is going to go, with all those incidents, with all the strange things that can happen here at Monza? Are you aspiring to be race winner again later on this season and continue to stay up towards the top in the championship? What's your aspiration?
Yeah, I mean, I hope to of course be back on the podium, back in the leading the AM. But you know, who knows? Monza's a little bit of a different track. Next week we got Le Mans, so a little bit of the same, but then it kind of evens out with the rest of the schedule. So who knows how indicative this will be of the rest of the season? But hopefully I can keep on that form.
Absolutely, we hope so. Congratulations on the win in AM tonight, and thanks for coming to chat to us as well. Thanks,
guys.
Thanks very much, Luke Davis, the winner in AM. And I just want to jump around as well, because Tyler Graff has come to have a quick chat with us as well. So I do want to get to him very quickly before we go to the Sprint Series. I know we've only got 5 minutes, but we'll be quick. Tyler, welcome in as well. Good to have you with us. You finished in 4th place by just 0.03 of a second in the end. I know that you had your dramas with fuel towards the end, but just how are you feeling after that one and just missing out on the podium?
It's really whatever. I just was not comfortable in the car tonight, so I just wasn't happy with how the race was going and how I felt in the car. So the difference between 3rd and 4th isn't that big to me, but I'm just more annoyed about this fuel thing. I overfueled by 1.5 gallons, and then half that run it was telling me I was short. So I'm just kind of a bit bamboozled right now. Kind of ridiculous, but no more race labs for fuel, that's for sure.
I always have trust issues with these apps that tell you how much fuel, and this is exactly why. What about the rest of the season for yourself? Where are you expecting to be?
I'm hoping to be top 5, top 3. I know I kind of get out of it what I put in it. Some seasons I'm a little bit more grindy. Some seasons it's a little bit more relaxed for me. So we'll see where we end up after a few rounds. I'm running the trucks on Wednesdays now too, so that'll be fun. But yeah, I'll be re-downloading my 3 versions old of sim racing apps, and hopefully won't have any more fuel issues this year.
Absolutely, hope not. And we'll hopefully see you tomorrow in the Truck Series. Thanks for coming to chat to us.
Yeah, have a good one.
Thanks very much, Tyler Graff. They're 4th here tonight overall in the Fix Series. It was William Fenton who takes the win in the opening round of the PRL GT3 Fix Series. Don't go anywhere though, more racing to come here from Monza as the PRL GT3 Sprint Series has its opening round coming up next. It's time for 40 more minutes of racing. The PRL GT3 Sprint Series sees its opening round also here at the Temple of Speed of Monza. We're here for, of course, the same rounds as the GT3 Fix Series that we've just seen. Only difference is you can tinker with the setups. You're going for 5 minutes longer, and it comes with the knowledge of what's already happened in tonight's racing. It's still myself, Ian Leary, and Darren Thacker along with you. Another 47 have already got times in this session Darren, we will have seen 90 drivers come through our computer screens by the end of tonight. It's a monstrous PRL field, but this is going to be that little bit quicker, that little bit closer maybe, as everybody gets the chance to just tweak the setups to their liking.
Yeah, and as the opening race was more really absolutely based on driver performance, this can be a little bit more to the driver's ingenuity and how they can set up the car to suit their needs, or really just to suit the car perfectly. So a little bit more that the drivers can do to maybe try and play a couple of games, not just with the strategy, but with how they want to race these 40 minutes as well. It's going to be really interesting just to see how they do it, see how close the grids are, and kind of see what kind of action we get. Is it going to be the same as we had earlier in the Fix Series, or will drivers play a little bit more around with the amount of straight line speed that they can put on the car, just to maybe change it up a little bit?
Well, it's certainly created a different look to the front of the standings as far as manufacturers goes. We've got Corvette, BMW, McLaren, Porsche in the top 10. The first Ford Mustang just outside of the top 10 at the moment. That's David Holland, who's currently in 13th position. Looking further down the field, as soon as you are allowed to change the setup, it doesn't seem that anybody really fancies the Audi anymore, and not as many Ferraris anywhere near as many Ferraris either. So it's pretty interesting to see the different variety. I guess the speed of a car at its fixed setup is probably different to what it is when it's at its Sprint Series and an open setup format compared to the other manufacturers. As the time ticks down now, it does look like a very close qualifying session. The gap that William Fenton had, by the way, is the gap in this qualifying session between 1st and 15th. That I'm not sure if that says more about this field or the last one.
Yeah, I mean, it's so close, isn't it, between all of these guys? And it's great to see when drivers are close together, because it means that week in, week out, you know, it's really going to be circumstantial about who is going to get near the front, who can perform consistently and really put themselves near the front of the field, because it can change when the gaps are, I mean, between the 3rd and 4th is 1,000th of a second. Between, 10th and 11th at the moment, it's 5,000ths of a second. These are, I mean, these are lucky gaps at this point. I mean, this is how close can you run to the line, up to the line. So this is great to see, and it's great for us up here as well, because it means that we don't really know how this race is going to pan out and which drivers can maybe pull forward with a good race pace.
There's a bit of useful pit lane practice, which I always say is a very underrated thing to do when you're practicing. Always brushed over by drivers, but certainly in my estimation. But there's a couple of drivers giving it a go as the qualifying session does now draw to a close. Who's still out there that's really improving? Not really anybody, to be honest. The checker flag is flying, and so almost nobody is on the circuit at all as things stand. Elliot Brzezinski is out there at the moment, but I'm not sure improving or doing anything to topple Luke Wallace, who seems to be the pole sitter. There's Vincent Trepanier, part of the Advanced Motorsports team, and a very seasoned GT3 racer in the PRL, of course. Always enjoy seeing these drivers' setups and where they're racing from. Didn't get too many of them in the Fix Series. Don't forget to join the Zoom call, and we'll comment on your setup. Maybe that's not an encouragement for people to do it, really, is it? But anyway, let's hope we get some more next week, and we can judge some more people as we do that. There's Paul Espina. He's cleverly split screened himself, so he's got triple screen display in the bottom, and I'm presuming what he's seeing in the top, just making his last messages or checking his, I don't know, before racing. Triple screen all the rage these days. Used to be uncommon. Now they're everywhere.
You're not too happy about it, Ewan, frankly.
I haven't got one.
I was just going to briefly mention, I was looking at the timing page just to see if I could find anything interesting. I looked back and just saw Vincent Trepanier full screen in front of me, and I genuinely jumped there. Our producer Hugo, maybe not going to be some of the drivers' favourite after that, but yeah, I mean, it's nice to get a bit of an insight into what the drivers are doing between these little sessions, because they do have a couple of minutes of downtime between racing, and you know, some drivers do different things. Some just like to be focused in, just keep looking at their screens, have a little bit of a chat if they're with anybody. Some like to just disconnect, as we saw Espinosa do there, and just look at his phone. Maybe he was ordering dinner for after the race. Who knows? Maybe doing an Arjuna Kanka party in that regard. But it's nice to see what the drivers do between the races, because we often see them when they're driving and they're focusing, but it's also nice to see them when they're not in the zone, if you like.
Yeah, the stress though of not knowing whether this race is going to end before your food arrives or not is quite. I speak from personal experience. Quite stressful. so there we go. Let's have a look at the AM pole position. I think we're about to see the lap of Steve Baker here in a few moments' time, as we always do in warm-up. We're getting a view as to the pole lap in each session, and this is Steve Baker, who is in the AM class. First position, immediate slipstream from the BMW, and then that slipstream doesn't look like it's going to go away, and it feels somewhat like an even busier qualifying session. But quite apart from the fact that slipstream will have helped him, of course it will, but actually to deal with all these distractions around him and still go as quick as he has done is clearly very impressive.
Yeah, this is a great lap, clearly, from Steve Baker, running through Curva Grande. Cars on the outside as well. Not doing him the best of help, but clearly keeping focused. We talked about the Della Roger all the way through the last race, but just seeing how much the driver's taking, bouncing his way over, being very aggressive with the curb usage there in the number 2. Lesmo 1, little bit of a dip into the corner, slightly off camber as you work your way through the exit. But the camber, well, it's on camber really, as the camber works with you. Lesmo 2 is a little bit flatter and can spit you out a little bit wider, but a nice little bit of concrete will keep you off of the gravel there. But then it's the long run down to Ascari, and clearly lots of overspeed there from Steve Baker getting under the old circuit.
That was really close. Was I the only one surprised by that? Goodness me. Oh dear, I thought he was going to pile into the back of the Porsche there. So nice run towards Ascari, and then this last straight is the only time he's not going to be getting any slipstream, but he's got all he can get there really, as Baker. Still this, by the way, only good enough for 16th position, but he'll absolutely take that if he has to, because he's got one of the fastest times in his class, indeed the fastest time in his class for Solpic Precision Racing Blue over the line for Baker, and that was pole. But again, I think credit has to be given to him for all the distractions around him, not least the drivers he was slipstreaming off of, but actually did he see through the Lesmos? There was a car off in the gravel a few cars ahead of him, and despite all the smoke and the gravel and the dust in the air and the tyre tracks going all over the place, he was still just locked in, tunnel vision, and didn't let anything faze him there.
Yeah, which is really impressive, because there were so many distractions on that lap, particularly around the Lesmos and then down the straight towards the Ascari, but really just managed to keep it all together and keep the lap quick, really. I mean, it's difficult. It sounds silly, but realistically, it's true. You can lose a couple of tenths just by getting a distraction. As we saw at Lesmo 2, you can go a little bit wide, drift out a little bit further, and then all of that run is now ruined all the way down towards the Ascari chicanes. We see Evan Mackay getting ready and getting focused in a very bright room. I often find it interesting, Ewan, just to see how bright different people's rooms are, because sometimes drivers like it to be completely dark and others like to have it filled with light.
I've got to say, he's a psychopath because he's left his door open. That's the first thing to say. Second of all, what on earth is going on behind his chair? He's sort of made his bed. It looks like there's someone's legs there.
I was going to mention it, but I wasn't sure, but I think you're right, actually.
Is he killed someone? I don't know what's going on there. Anyway, we'll wish him well and leave him be, because I don't know what's going on there in his household. Anyway, he's just getting ready. More to the point, actually, it looked like he had some sort of motion, unless his chair was just a bit wiggly and not quite staying where it should have been. It looked like he had some lights or sort of motion simulator, which very realistic and feels great for realism, whatever. I'm not seeing it be particularly advantageous to drive in speed-wise yet, though. I wonder whether he'll go quickly. I'm sure he will here in this race. I would think a motion would be quite distracting, actually, when you're racing competitively.
Yeah, it could be emotional. I mean, my chair would do that, and I got mine from IKEA. So, you know, it is possible that it is just a normal chair that maybe needs replacing. But emotion chairs, I find them interesting, actually, because they do give you a little bit of that added realism, but at the same time, I just feel like I'd be thrown around a little bit too much for my own liking, especially in my own room. Yeah, I'm not too sure.
Luke Wallace takes his third PRL pole position here with a 1:46.8, and he's alongside Emmett Lindqvist at the start of this one. Elliot Budzinski and Nick Ludecki, the teammates, are on row 2 ahead of Jason Allen and J.R. Williams. 7th position will be Evan Mackay, as we were just seeing. Simon Terrio will be in 8th place ahead of Jaden Comright, also part of the Fieldiness Racing team, in 9th ahead of Cade Middleton. The 10th driver in the field, David Mendonca and Connor Wagner, round out the top 12. David Holland is 13th ahead of Vincent Trapani. Sean Dixon 15th ahead of the first of the Am, Steve Baker. Eric Palacio and Will Borland will share row 9. Kevin Simpson and Corey Kirkone will be rounding out the top 20. Even Bass has been forced out of the Ford GT forcibly, and he's now in the Ford Mustang, 21st for him ahead of Calvin Mint. It will be Peter Nodwell and Ryan Skalny, part of the SCR team, sharing row 12. Rich Calais and Matthew Brower will be next to Joshua Spears and Chris Stewart. Paul Espina and Peter Moller round out the top 30. 31st is Andrew Chorostowski with Ryan Reeves alongside Eric Fox, and Stephen Dunn will be on row 17 ahead of Chris Long and Adam Henwood. Jason Finch is 37th ahead of Jack Hedgecott, with Jeremy Littleton and Miles Brown rounding up the top 40. Devon Brock and Kyle Robertson are on row 21, followed by Wesley Bryce in 43rd, Bryce Bombeck 44th, Richard Saavedra 45th, Jack Polyak in 46th, and Dakota Knapp, the final and 47th driver in the field. Quick word from you, Darrell, on the start of this race. Is it going to be cleaner or less clean than a very well-behaved Fix Series opening lap before it all descended into chaos on the second?
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't think it can get any cleaner, so I think I'm going to have to go for it being a little bit more crazy on the opening couple of corners, but that's just because the standard has been set so high by the Fixed Series. Will these guys go really add it into turn 1? Of course, they've got lots of different settings with their brake biases and, you know, X, Y, Z, all of the different things that the drivers will have been tinkering with before this race. So we may see a couple of more incidents, but the front guys, again, will want to get away. They'll be worried about the cars behind, and the guys at the back will just have to try and pick their way through if anything awry does happen in front of them.
Up towards the line for the all-Corvette front row. It's a new season in the PRL GT3 Sprint Series, starting also here at Monza. 40 minutes of racing to decide the first race winner of the season, and it's Luke Wallace who gets off to a perfect start. The BMW teammates for Fieldiness Racing are sharing row 2 and staying locked together on the way towards the Rettifilio for the first time, weaving left and right, looking for the space to go down into. Here into the first chicane for the first time. Does everybody make it through? Hold your breath, everybody, as they go through the opening 2 corners for the first time. Unfortunately, there is a bit of contact in the background. Looks like a Mercedes on the outside there that had lost its front end, unless I've gone completely crazy. There was a concertina effect as expected. A few drivers have got damage.
Yeah, I think right at the back of the pack, they were 4 wide making their way into the Rettifilio, which is absolutely not what you want to be doing into the opening couple of corners. The La Roger is being approached for the first time. That's deep from the number 91, managing to get it stopped before any kind of incident occurred. But that really did look very late on the brakes in towards the session chicane of the lap. Lesmo 1 and Lesmo 2 are the next challenge for all of these guys, but it is a much more frantic opening lap than we saw in the series earlier.
Yeah, that was Evan Mackay, by the way, who got caught out by a concertina effect, a second one, into the De La Rogier chicane, and very nearly hits a few drivers in front of him. Already a break in the field as the top 4 get away. Luke Wallace, Emmett Lindqvist, Nick Ndudeke and Elliot Budzinski round out the top 4, and then from 5th place backwards, from Jason Allen backwards, it's one long line. This is more like what I was expecting in the Fix Series race. Big groups, which is often what you get here at Monza with the slipstream so powerful. Oh, crash!
Oh,
big crash in the background. One of the Corvettes has gone into the wall hard in the background. Who is it? It's Corey Kirkone, I'm afraid, who has got into the wall, and thankfully it's not an absolute pile-up, it's just a personal disaster for him.
Yeah, it's not a great way to start your season on the opening lap as well, so Oh, yes, and oh, no! Oh, I was worried that was going to be right in the middle of the track, and Mendonca luckily managing to get it out of the racing line, but having to wait because that's an awful place to try and spin it back round.
Well, he's going to have to wait for the entire field here, and he does. Finally, now he'll get the chance. This is the replay in towards turn one. It's happened a bit ahead of the cars we were following there, which came to a complete stop almost. Well, it did through turns 1 and 2 there. Sort of an orangey red sort of car that's lost its front end completely, and there was a bit of afters as well on the exit of turn 2, but I don't think anyone's done anything wrong there. It's just simple concertina effect, really.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's so difficult, this opening chicane, especially when you've got so many cars around you. I mean, they just keep piling into the opening turns. And so a lot of these guys not really able to do too much. Chris Long not being able to do too much about that rear end, sliding back onto the racing line. Ooh, and nearly gets collected. And the car actually blinks past. Went invisible to get past Chris Long there.
This was Corey Kokone getting into the gravel to avoid cars going across the corner in the inside. He smacks the wall on the outside line. That's a very damaged Corvette, I would have thought, after that hit, I'm afraid. Chris Long, by the way, was the one hit at turn 1, just to clear that one up. But look at this going on ahead. Oh, he hits the inside curb and then gets loose over the gravel, loses it, smashes into the wall. So, well, I don't know if unavoidable, but certainly didn't have a lot of choice as to where his car was going at a lot of times during that one. Mackay getting overtaken now, and Mackay by David Holland in the Ford Mustang. This is becoming a group for 11th place as they're letting a further group ahead of them just get away in this battle now.
Corey Saccone is a driver that has done very well, not just in this series before, but also in the GT3 series last season particularly, so definitely has pedigree in these cars. And unfortunate there to have an incident on the opening lap, but like you said, looked difficult to collect up. Opening corner though, on the 3rd tour of the racetrack, nothing going in the end in this battle for what is, I believe, P11 behind Vincent Trepanier, the driver that we actually saw getting ready for the race before we got going. But they've got a little bit of a gap up to Conor Wagner at 1.2 seconds, and if that starts to grow a little bit more, I think you're going to have to be worried for the 87 car for losing any kind of slipstream effect.
So this is what we were waiting to see. Will Borland as the McLaren spun around at the front of the race, and that is the knock-on effect that saw Kokone into the wall on the outside line. Meanwhile, Emmett Lindqvist is now in the lead. Luke Wallace has lost from the pole position. This is the view from the air. Does Borland get spun, or does he bring this upon himself? Can't tell, really. That's one for the stewards to decide. I will abstain from commenting on that one. He gets overtaken, though, and drops outside, well outside the top 15 as a result of that. But, yeah, we have a new leader. Emmett Lindqvist is now in the lead, and that's the first time tonight. But unbelievably, we've seen the Polster lose the lead.
Yeah, and he's built up quite a nice advantage as well. Nearly a full second to Luke Wallace already after taking the lead on this lap. So as he makes it way into Parabolica with an interesting line into the corner, we'll see if he can consolidate that lead. Looked like he almost turned in a little bit too early and had to pull out very briefly in the number 40 car, which is not exactly what you wanted, and he did lose a little bit of time through the 180 degrees rotation, which is the Parabolica, but you know, more than safe and more than clear enough down towards the opening corner that there is no worry at all of him losing the lead, at least just yet. The top 4 as well, getting a little bit away from the rest of the pack, and this is what happened. Looks like a slowdown, yeah.
Yep, it looks like it. Luke Wallace just throwing that lead away, really. Cade Middleton losing out to Conor Wagner there for 9th place. He's in the big Mustang, by the way, is Wagner. Long-time successful driver in the PRL, of course, is Conor Wagner. Seen him on plenty of occasions in the past. You've got 15 wins to his name, and he's on our very long list of drivers who've done more than 50 PRL races. This is his 64th appearance, would you believe it, in the PRL. When you consider there's 9 or 10 races per season, he may do multiple series a season, but you start to understand quite how many he's done in this series. In case you're interested, the driver with the most start is Charles Sumner, who has over 500 starts in the PRL to date. Out of Lesmo 2 goes this second group. It's being led by Jaden Comright now, who has overtaken Jason Allen. I think that was a pretty important pass to make, because it seems the McLaren is a bit of a cork in the bottle for this entire group, and it's really allowed a top 4 to get a substantial margin in the first quarter of this race.
It has bunched up the battle for P5, hasn't it? Led by Jaden Conrad, as you can see them all snaking their way towards Parabolica. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 as they go onto the bridge. They are just running line of stern. You can throw a blanket over a couple of these groups as they run so close together, nearly pushing their way through the corner. I think that's David Holland nearly pushing Cade Middleton as they make their way up towards the start-finish line once again. But it's interesting to see how the guys have settled into this race. There was a lot more action on the opening lap in this one than there was in the Fix Series, but since then I think it's settled down a little bit more, particularly at the front, with drivers maybe going a little bit more conservative in their aspirations to getting forward, knowing that they've got a little bit of time to make those moves. Evan Mackay gets past Vincent Trepanier.
Oh no, he doesn't.
Oh no, well, no, yeah, I was going to say he got past David Holland as well, but he absolutely did not.
That would have been a Daniel Ricciardo style late braking, wouldn't it? But impossible for him to have managed that. So through goes Eric Palacio as well, excuse me. So Mackay takes 1 step forward and 2 steps back, I'm afraid. One more public service announcement, by the way. You're going to have to give us a pass on Cade Middleton as well. For the season, without thinking about the royal family, it's going to be pretty difficult.
I hadn't even considered that.
No, okay, it just sounds extremely similar. Anyway, not that. Yeah, anyway, let's not go there. Out of the second Lesmo they go and in towards Ascari. They're beginning to get rid of the BMWs here. These 2 Corvettes. It's almost like they're cooperating like teammates, to be honest. Lindqvist and Wallace. Elliot Brzezinski can stay with the pace, but it looks like Nick Ludicki is becoming, or starting at least, to struggle. Oh, Conor Wagner in the background. That was a huge moment, and somehow he has not crashed.
Yeah, managing to collect it back up again, but that was not a comfortable moment, was it at all? So, lucky to keep it going as they're now run through the Parabolica once again. We're nearly... Oh, there's a little bit of weaving. I thought it was diving into the pit lane for half a second there, but it's just a bit of a weave to try and break the slipstream. Eric Lindqvist clearly not comfortable in that 40 car with the amount of slipstream that Luke Wallace is going to receive. He's going to go back to the racing line, but it might open the door for the inside move.
Whoa, too late! Far too late for the pole sitter, and Luke Wallace has to go through these chicanes. He's absolutely made a mess of that. He'll give a slowdown up now, I'm afraid. Luke Wallace for SRT Yellow has gone for the lead. He's gone for the big move, and I'm afraid it's turned out really badly. He's lost the slipstream as well, or he's close to, as Elliot Brzezinski moves up into second position. Emmett Lindqvist still leads, but that was a colossal mistake from Luke Wallace that he might well pay for with his chance to win this race.
Yeah, he went for it so late on the brakes as well. You could see the door was open, and I think he thought that it wasn't going to be available. And then when he saw Emmett Lindqvist go back to the racing line, he thought, well, I'm going to go for it now that you've given me the opportunity, and just tried to brake as late as he could. But in the end, he went a little bit past the possibility of the braking zone and ended up going a little bit deep. And then, I mean, we saw him take those first 2 turns quite aggressively. It does really tighten at that 3rd turn, and I don't think drivers really know that unless they've taken it before. And he may not have realised that you have to take a lot more speed off into the 3rd part of that chicane to get the car through without absolutely demolishing what would be those polystyrene markers. But it's so unfortunate for him and disappointing as well. He needs to do a lot of work realistically to get himself back in with a shot of winning this race.
Oh, Trapani's got a great run there on David Holland. And by the way, I must correct myself from earlier on. It wasn't Conor Wagner who nearly hit the wall after Ascari last lap. It was David Holland who did lose out on positions as a result of that and has been clawed back into the clutches of Vincent Trapani, who you can see there on the bottom right of your screen. So looking up, that is what looks like a triple screen display as well. Looking up to his mirror, the virtual mirror that is, and just seeing what Eric Palacio is going to do here. Does he go for a move on the way in towards turn 1? Will Palacio go for one? Looks like the McLaren is going down the inside, relatively late on the brakes. Trapani gives the room, and it's going to remain side by side at the Rettifilio. Does he have the space to pull across on his rival here? No, not quite. And the McLaren will have the inside through the Curva Grande.
Trapani taking a very wide line though as we make our way into Curva Grande, giving just that shorter run to Eric Palacio, which may not look like much, but will be gaining him a few hundreds and thousands in his pursuit to take that position, and in the end does do that. Trapani having to sit in behind, but no flicker of any kind of emotion until maybe now. Maybe a little bit of a shake of the head there from Trapanier, but not going to be too flustered by this at the early stage of the race. But I think this camera angle, I'm sorry to go back to it again, but it does show the parallel of the light in the rooms, because we saw earlier how bright Evan McKay is. The only light in Trapanier's room is the Sims, and I just find it really interesting to see the difference. I'm sorry, it's my pet interest when it comes to these views that we get.
No wonder he needs glasses, because that would make my eyes hurt, to be honest.
Yeah.
I can't. I've said it many times before. Can't have the lights off. Got to be on. There we go. That's more like it. Evan McKay, who has got the lights on and is doing it the correct way. Breathing quite heavily there, seemingly quite nervous. But you know, listen to another broadcast that we were on, Darragh, at the weekend about sim racing versus real life racing, and heart rate. Actually, driving some cars in real life takes less heart rate, if you like, than sim racing, because a lot of it is mental. A lot of it comes down to nerves. If you've been preparing for a long time for one of these races, you're in a high-stakes battle like this one for the back end of the top 10, then your heart rate does go up through a lot of nerves and higher maybe heart rate than you would through the physical effort of driving these cars for real, which is quite bizarre to get your head around.
Yeah, I think it was referenced at the weekend where you're talking about, but at the same time, good to reference here that during the Esports World Cup, I know that some of the teams, particularly I think the BMW teams, had fitted some of their drivers with heart rate monitors, just to kind of see how it changed throughout the race and at race starts and during qualifying. And it was really interesting just to see some of that data come through. And I know there was a couple of drivers, including Kike Oliveira, the BS competition driver, who, according to members of his own team, might as well be dead, because he just had barely any difference in his heart rate when he was driving, resting very low as well. So it's interesting how different drivers can cope differently, because some drivers, I think, will get their heart rate up, especially when they're going to be going maybe side by side into Ascari, not for the lead this time round. But some drivers do react differently, and it does all add up sometimes. You know, the adrenaline can rush a little bit more in some drivers than others, and lead to maybe more moves, or then again more mistakes.
And going into that as well, some drivers drive better when they are a bit more pumped up and their heart rate is a bit higher and they are a bit more nervous. Some drivers really need to stay calm, and if they let their heart rate get out of control, let their nerves get out of control, then they can start to fall apart a bit on the racetrack. So it is a very interesting conundrum that these drivers go through every time they take to the circuit in the virtual world, but very interesting aspect to the business we work in. Meanwhile, 25 minutes remaining, and Emmett Lindqvist is getting pushed by Elliot Budzinski, who I get the feeling would rather he wasn't being sandwiched by two Corvettes here, and instead would like Lindqvist to go a bit quicker and keep Wallace out the slipstream. But it looks like that is a forlorn hope now. We might well have three for the lead again.
Yeah, I think these top three may start to pull away a little bit from the number 16, but there is definitely a clear gap down to Jaden Conwright in P5, who is now leading that train, that goes really all the way back to P15 and Sean Dixon, because these three at the front are starting to get away. We've got a man in no man's land, and then the train. It's interesting to see. It will be if that changes any kind of strategy from the drivers, but from what we saw in the opening race, I think a lot of the drivers may be having to drive to their fuel number rather than anything else. But we'll see if it gets as busy in pit lane as it did during the Fix Series.
Yep. I'm hoping there's a bit more variety than what we had in the Fix Series, where everyone came in a very short space. So let's wait and see on that front, hoping for a bit more variety. Into the two Lesmos for a group a lot further down. This is Jack Hitchcock's in the McLaren, you can see. The reason we're looking back here, by the way, is because Chris Stewart is the AM leader a long way back in the first race. Obviously, we had the AM leaders actually battling for top 10 places, and so you could see them on the left-hand side, but it's worth us updating you on the AM, so you haven't seen so much so far. Chris Stewart leading from Steve Baker, who qualified on pole. They're also with Ryan Scalny, who's not an AM, but he is in their fight. Matthew Brewer and Rich Kalai are third and fourth at the moment in the field. There they are, working together. Peter Moller is in fifth place. He's on his own, a little bit further back, and indeed Brewer is being passed here by Rich Kalai. That's not very good working together, if indeed they are. as Kalai goes through. Peter Moller is next up. He's in 5th position, and then there's a much bigger group that we were just watching a few moments ago. But arguably the AM battles down here in the Sprint Series even more difficult to contend with, because actually they're involved and embroiled in the midfield battle, whereas actually the leaders in AM in the Fix Series were in top positions at one stage, in the top 5, with a lot less traffic around them.
Yeah, and it means that there's a little bit more pressure, I think, on these guys to make sure that they don't make too many mistakes like that little one we just saw on the exit of the right of Filio, because the room for error is much thinner. I mean, throughout the race, the leaders in the AM in the Fix Series, you know, could gain 10, 20, 30 seconds over the core of the AM guys. But now in this race, they've not got that room, as there's no room for the number 92 through Lesmo 2. This opens the door for Luke Wallace to try and get both of them into Ascari.
Feels like there was a bit of previous to that, because that was all very aggressive into Lesmo 2, and here goes Luke Wallace on the outside, the pole sitter, trying to take his 4th PRL win, getting boxed in here on the inside by Brzezinski, who fires it into Ascari and holds on to 2nd position. Emmett Lindqvist still leads, but what on earth was going on there in the middle sector?
Well, clearly, Brzezinski isn't very happy. A little flash of the lights on the exit of Ascari. Luke Wallace is still in there as well. Maybe there was a mistake on the exit, I can think of, possibly into the Della Roger, leading to some side-by-side in Lesmo 1, and then it rolled onto Lesmo 2, but clearly a little bit of needle between those drivers that happened somewhere in the middle sector, because they were not that close half a minute before we got towards Ascari, but now it's going to reignite this fight all the way down to the opening corner, as they are now all so close together.
I think they're going to be a little bit more cordial on the way towards turn 1. Indeed. Lindqvist is closing in here, by the way, as well, so there is 2 drivers from the same team here for Racing involved in this battle now. So we go on board with the BMW, and there is the rather nicely coloured BMW in small picture form on the right-hand side. I don't mind the livery of Wilderness Racing team, who are currently running in 2nd and 4th early on in this race. Lap times, by the way, are roughly about a second quicker than they were in the Fix Series per lap, so we should be getting a similar amount of laps throughout the race, although it is 5 minutes longer, so it should be 22 or 23 laps. The reason I'm mentioning that is because we're on lap 11. Should be half distance in terms of laps, maybe at the end of this one, maybe at the end of the next. But actually what that means, based on the first race we've seen anyway, is that pit stops can't be too far around the corner. Yeah, and the fact that nobody has come into the pit lane yet suggests that it probably is likely to be this or next in terms of who's coming into the box. So this could be quite busy on pit road. We may see a couple of drivers change their strategies last minute if they have the ability to do so. It really just depends on how much fuel they've got left in their tanks as they all run their way through. Interesting thing for these guys, you can see it in the foreground, is that the leaders are going to come up to a little bit of traffic. You'd expect them to jump out of the way, but it still may have a little bit of an impact if the likes of Lindqvist can get a little bit of slipstream down the main straight. Well, this could be quite a run down towards turn 1 for Luke Wallace if he gets the exit. Look at how close they are. And Brzezinski maybe with one of the better runs there in the BMW. He needs to try and crouch behind the Corvette the best he possibly can. And that could be quite tricky in such a tall BMW M4 these days, of course. But let's see. Does he go for the move for the lead here? Or does he even stay in behind in this Corvette sandwich? He's lifting off. And so Wallace is forced to as well. Ludecky closes in as a result. He's probably with this group now. So it looks like Brzezinski has elected to use this first part of the race for fuel saving rather than overtaking. Biding his time, just trying to see if maybe if he can fuel save enough to get an extra lap, he can try and use some of that pace, maybe do a bit of an overcut. We'll wait and see, but Brzezinski clearly playing the long game there, because the move was absolutely on for some kind of move to the inside or even the outside. He definitely could have gone for it. Elected to not do that and just to stay exactly where he is, so clearly a reason behind that. But Lindqvist feeling the need to defend into Lesmo 1. I mean, this does not look comfortable if you're leading this race in the number 40 right now. No, it doesn't. Into the 2 Lesmos and into the middle sector for those 2 now. By the way, the driver just in front of them, I believe, is Paul Espina, who is going to be lapped by these 4 very shortly. And here comes Luke Wallace. Is he going to expect some help from his fellow Corvette there into Ascari? No, he didn't get it anyway, but no, he doesn't get it. And look at that, not a great line from Lindqvist on the way in, but he should get the exit he requires here. Brzezinski again, though, doesn't really look like he wants to overtake for the moment. Luke Wallace, certainly the itchiest in this group as far as making overtakes goes. And he will, Lindqvist, just be getting that little bit of a slipstream off of Espino, I think, as well here. So that can't be helping in their quest collectively to try and get through on him. Out of the parabolica now. Are there going to be any pit stops now that we are over halfway? Do we see anybody diving in here for the end of another lap? Doesn't look like it to me. Look, and the 4 do indeed stay out. So a little bit more flexibility in the Sprint Series, which I'm pleased to see. As I say, the Fix Series, it was almost decided for them when they had to come in.
Yeah, I mean, we still might see them all in on the same lap, but we're clearly going past half distance here. So drivers having a little bit more time to pick their pit lap, but no one really going for it too early in this race, which is interesting to see, because you would have thought maybe a few drivers would have tried it around the half distance mark, but everybody going past the 50% point in the race before making their pit stop. So it's going to be quite, I think, interesting to see. Also, I think just interesting to note, on a general point for this race, that we haven't got as many McLarens and Ferraris as we did in the Fixed Series. Much more biased towards those Corvettes, along with the BMWs and the Fords near the front, with the Mustangs up there. But even still, in the Fixed Series in the end, in the top 10 in the end of the race, there were 6 different manufacturers, and we're getting a similar kind of thing here, with quite an array of cars inside the top 10. We're actually just missing any kind of Ferrari representation up there.
Yeah, there are not many Ferraris in the Sprint Series compared to the Fixed, as I mentioned in qualifying. Don't really know what the reason for that is, but seems to be ringing true in this season. Of course, they can select a new car halfway through, if they, or not half, or any time through if they want to, but there is a points penalty attached to that, so anybody going for the championship will be steering clear of doing that over the course of the season. Out over the line for the end of another lap. Espina not exactly getting out of the way of these guys, but now moves to the right-hand side, driver's right, to let the at least leader through. At least 3 leaders through. Will he let Nick Ledecky through as well? Will indeed, and here goes Luke Wallace. The pole sitter redressing his error from down in towards turn number 1 many minutes ago now. Finally, he's back into the position he was when he attempted that move all those laps ago.
Yeah, and you can tell he was going to take a little bit more caution into that corner, onto the brakes. He wasn't going to be making the same mistake twice, and made sure that he was going to brake at a point where he knew he could get the car stops for the apex at turn 1. Good to see him up into P2 once again, and it now looks like it's a Corvette versus Corvette battle at the front of the field.
Interesting pit stops here in AM. Steve Baker, the pole sitter, making his way in. Who else is being it? Because the leader's changed here, is it? Chris Stewart is now 16th. No, he is still leading, excuse me. So that is the first part to a story there in the AM field, as Baker makes his way into pit lane. Over and under the bridge, I should say, go the overall leader. Surely that means that their pit stop's not too far away. We saw this a bit in the Fix Series. Few come in first time round, then all of them in next time.
Yeah, we might just see a mass arrival of cars onto the pit lane. It's a good job there's no kind of alarm, because I think it'd be going off pretty much constantly if we saw them all filter in. Well, yeah, that's true. It'd be bad for the people at the end of the pit lane, the marshals there. Thankfully, there's no one there to get their ears hurt. Out of the final corner, anybody coming in? Lindqvist, very tight line. He looks like he's coming in. Is he going to dive out last minute? The answer is no. Everybody, it seems, is coming in. Oh, that gets close into the pit lane. Wow,
Brzezinski was playing with fire there. As he got into the pit lane, he very nearly fed himself straight into the pit wall. Now he'll, don't see the point of it really, because now he's only got to tuck in behind Wallace anyway. And into the box they go. He misses it. He missed it. Elliot Brzezinski, Emmett Lindqvist missed it. He missed his pit box, and we are going to see a change of lead here. Will it be Wallace? Will it be Brzezinski who gets out first? Who saved the most? It's going to be Brzezinski who goes flying out the pit lane first of all. And in 4th place, Emmett Lindqvist had to reverse into his box. He's had a disaster, and he'll be livid with himself there.
Yeah, Brzezinski 3rd to 1st in the pit lane. That's massive for him in the number 92 car. Oh, as they get so close down onto the brakes into the right of Filio. The only concern for the 92 is the fact that Luke Wallace, just 1 lap ago, got past him at turn 1, and Brzezinski had the help of slipstream whilst that move was ongoing. He doesn't have that help anymore, and Luke Wallace knows he can make the move. He'll likely try and do it again.
Well, we're still waiting for 5 drivers to come in, but this is going to be the battle for the race win at the end of this race. And Budzinski will lead ahead of Luke Wallace, Nick Ludecki and Emmett Lindqvist, whose reverse into the pit box has cost him 3 places. I suspected it would. Everybody just had to hit their marks there, and they just couldn't quite. It was caused further complicated, especially for the Corvette drivers, by the fact there was a laps driver getting repairs done in one of their boxes, and so that will have made it more difficult to see, I suppose. But so disappointing for Lindqvist to have led for so long. Now he's going to be 4th and having to fight his way through. And Jaden Conright, by the way, is not too far behind them. Because they've all been messing about so much, I think he might be in the slipstream himself now. Nearly.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of drivers in this now after this pit stop phase. Wagner has finally come in. Trapanier, Palacio, I expect we'll probably see Nodwell and Reeves in as well. And then we'll be on our way to the end of the race with only 12.5 minutes left to run. But these are big moments at the early stage of the season. Drivers making little mistakes. Emmett Lindqvist missing his pit box. How crucial could that be in the long run? Of course, we've still got a very long way to go in the championship. But in a race that looks really close between quite a few cars, how costly could that be come the end of the season? Budzinski will lead us across the line, but will he be able to lead us to the checkered flag? That's the real question.
Well, that is the big question, and a very unanswerable one, I've got to say as well. Conor Wagner makes his way out the pit lane then. It's 6th place, side by side with Allen, who... Does he get the place? Oh, contact, and a flash of the light from Wagner as well, who's not pleased with that. He'll have to go side by side with J.R. Williams now just to hang on to 8th place. So Wagner could have had 6th. He's still flashing the lights. He's absolutely furious with whatever went on at the Rettifilio there.
It's probably a good job we don't have any kind of radio on him, because he looks absolutely fuming. I think maybe Cade Middleton thought he had a bit more room than he actually did, and Conor Wagner not coming off in the best scenario. He's having to defend from J.R. Williams when he wanted to be attacking Jason Allen at this point in time, so he's not going to be in the best of moods. Vincent Trapanier is not far behind him either. He came into the pit lane at the same time, so those guys are 1 lap fresher out of the pit lane. I don't know how much difference that will make with only 11 minutes left, but with them running quite close together, you may see quite a few cars converge for the back end of the top 10 places.
Well, let's see. This is the AM battle. So who came out on top here? Was it Chris Stewart or was it Steve Baker? It was Baker. As you can see, there he is in 19th position. He's jumped Chris Stewart in the pit lane by going 1 lap earlier into the box. And now he is into 19th, but more importantly, the AM lead. Just been behind the pro Ethan Bass in the field there, and just behind them, they've still got Ryan Scalny, who was with them in the first stint. It's going to be up to those two to battle for the AM win. And again, they're still embroiled in traffic, which must make this very difficult indeed. In towards the Parabolica they go. Chris Stewart is going to have to wait, I would have thought, and not make his move onto the Rettifilio this time round, but they've still got 10 minutes to sort this out between them.
Yeah, still a little while, but those minutes will tick away pretty quickly. It's fair to say. Well, I mean, we've already had half an hour, which feels like it's been quite condensed, and with drivers really keen to get these moves done now. Every time they miss an opportunity or an opportunity goes by, they're going to lose a good 30-45 seconds before the next one appears. So they're going to have to be on it, and the drivers know that. And I think we may start to see a little bit more aggressiveness come out of these guys with these moves needing to be made, and particularly throughout the back end or the mid pack and the pros and towards the front of the AMs, because they do look very close together, and the battles really are possibly to be on here, particularly for the win in the AM category as well as the win in the pro category. We're not going to be short of action in the last 10 minutes.
Luke Wallace has got into 2nd place ahead of Nick excuse me, that was how it was before, wasn't it? Excuse me. Getting excited over something that hasn't even happened. They haven't changed any positions yet in these top 4. Jaden Conright is not quite as close as I thought, by the way, either, for getting the slipstream. If he was, then he'd bring a whole host of other names into the fray. There is Jason Allen just in behind them. Middleton, Wagner, Williams, Trapani would all get involved as well, but they're not quite crossed the gap. And again, we speak about qualifying being important at Monza. This is exactly why. If you're qualified inside that top 5, you're immediately almost included in that front group that get away from the rest, and you're not caught behind a driver who hasn't quite kept with the front of the race, like some of these who qualified outside the top 5 will surely have felt they've had in this race. They've seen a gap open in front of them with nothing they can do about it.
And I think it's going to be similar next week as well when we head towards the Circuit de la Sarde in Le Mans. So, very particular at the start of the season, a little bit of contact down in towards the Rettifilio. That looked a little bit sketchy. David Holland trying to get the position around the outside in his Mustang in the number 28 car. The Porsche looking a little bit slower off the corner as they get their way into Curva Grande. That was a big old moment. For all the world, I thought they were both going to be in the wall there.
Side by side they go through the Curva Grande now. The Porsche will have the inside for the Della Roggia chicane. Thuriot on the inside, later braking. No, not quite. The Mustang holds it round and stays ahead. David Holland in 11th position in the field. So they've lost the rest of the group now, but they're fighting between themselves over 11th position. Just saw on the way towards turn 1 there, Wallace just giving that first little look up the inside of Elliot Brzezinski, who, by the way, is going for his first ever PRL race victory here tonight, and what a place it would be to do it, if indeed he can. Nick Ledecky has lost a load of time. He was just behind Emmett Lindqvist. He's clearly made a mistake. He's now in the group for 4th place with Jaden Conright, and there he is, the teammates side by side.
And this could get a little bit tetchy down in towards the final corner on the racetrack as they get in towards Parabolica. A bit of a tap as well to the car behind, or car in front, I should say, from Jason Allen. They'll run through Parabolica, but Allen's got the tightest line of all of them. Can he pick off both of them in the middle of the corner? I think he can, you know, and the teammates will once again go side by side.
That was a bit naughty from Allen, really, pushing Nick Ledecky into the corner, and then he had higher speed than he really needed through the Parabolica, allowing Allen to get through on both of the positions. Instead of helping and bumping one another, the BMWs elect to go side by side. Ledecky is not going to let the McLaren just bully them out the way like that, and instead he breaks late, but even later, Allen holds it round the outside. That was a great bit of defending from the driver of the 71 McLaren, and Ledecky and Conright are forced to go side by side as teammates again here. They've sorted out into the second chicane, but what a smart bit of driving from Allen, if a little bit naughty, really.
Yeah, I mean, he looked like he was going to lose it off of the exit with the traction zone upcoming, but I think in the end, Ledecky got a little bit caught, or Conrad got a little bit caught on the outside, trying with the up and under, only to find his teammate on the inside. Couldn't quite get the cutback he was looking for, and really prevented a chance to get the move done once again down towards the Della Roggia. So unfortunate for the two teammates, but they can now try and hunt as a pack to get this P4 back as they get their way down towards Ascari one more time. Time really is now evaporating away from us. Only 6 minutes to go. 3 or 4 laps left in the offing.
Not many. 3 at the line, I'm going to say, for everybody now. So it will be a 22-lap race. Through Ascari they go. Jason Allen somehow managed to fight his way through to 4th position. A position that any of these guys in this group would have thought was unachievable even 2 laps ago. But Nick Ledecky's mistake somewhere around the circuit has really brought that into question, and now it's all a group for 4th position. Meanwhile, in the lead, Elliot Brzezinski still leads ahead of Luke Wallace and Emmett Lindqvist, who is in 3rd position. Wallace, the only driver who's won in the PRL before, looking to do it for a 4th time here tonight in the GT3 Sprint Series. In towards turn 1. And he's braked later. Wow, he was shown the outside, and he says, oh, go for it then. He can't quite do it, though. He'll get a very bad run out to the Rettifilio, and Lindqvist, now right behind him, will try and take advantage. Meanwhile, Allen getting ganged up on by the Fildeners BMWs, and Nick Ledecky returns to 4th place.
Yeah, ahead of Jason Allen once again. Conroy looked like he was going to go for the move. Nothing available to happen for him. Cade Middleton's looking at this thinking, I might have a go if you guys trip over yourselves, as David Holland looks to try and fight with the 2 Porsches on his inside. Down in towards the Della Roggia. It's covered off, but is he going to find a bit of a line? No, he can't. 2 teammates, it seems, either side as they run their way through the Della Roggia as they further up, nearly fighting into Lesmo 1. This has become frantic action, and you were right, Ewan. I did the maths while you were speaking. There will be 2 more to go at the end of this.
Well done. Full marks for you on the maths test. Out of Lesmo 2 they go. On board with Conor Wagner in the best placed of the Ford Mustangs so far, trying to crouch behind the very slim and sleek McLaren. Newly added to iRacing, of course, making its debut in the Precision Racing League GT3 Series here tonight. into Ascari they all go. Jason Allen in the first of the McLarens. First of all, he's fifth, but look at Nudeke here. He is beginning to pull away and forcing Allen to go defensive and lose his slipstream on the way to Parabolica.
Yeah, which way are they going to go into Parabolica? Anybody going to look for a move? I think they're all going to stay line of stern. But, I mean, these cars, they're climbing all over each other right now, looking for the line, looking to put them off, and looking to really put them off the line, particularly in a corner as important as Parabolica, with the run that you get towards the opening chicane of the lap, which, as we've seen, is the main overtaking opportunity on the circuit. And with only 2 more trips down, can anybody take advantage? Luke Wallace can't. He's going to have to do it on the final lap, maybe.
Or do you think he's been waiting for the final lap? I'm beginning to suspect so. Meanwhile, the battle for fourth has not been about waiting. It's been about battling. And Vincent Trepanier having to feel that again here with David Holland, who's going round his outside, looking to make it 2 Mustangs in the top 10. And it is going to be as he holds the inside line through the Curva Grande. Trepanier having his teammate do what he can here. And it's working. He's getting that bump draft. He's getting the reverse slipstream. And he's looking to go for this. It's Terrio right in behind him, giving him the inside line into the Della Roggia. So late on the brakes for Holland. There's contact. He'll get his teammate to go through into 10th place instead.
Yeah, I guess that's kind of worked out for the team. Maybe not in the way that they were expecting, but one of them is in front. And now, really, the roles that they thought they were going to have into the final lap are now reversed as they try and get themselves both in front of David Holland. They'll work their way towards Ascari now. Of course, no DRS in these cars to be enabled, despite the polystyrene board being there. Can Holland fight this one, though? Therio looks like he's going to try and defend. He's looking like he's having a defensive shape to the inside, not allowing David Holland any kind of look into Ascari. But the only risk with that is it might prevent him from getting a good run off of this corner in Ascari and give a chance to Holland in towards Parabolica.
Look at this, the Mustang so close already behind the Porsche as the leaders, by the way, go through the final corner for the penultimate time. They will be shown the white flag, and the final lap in the opening round of the Sprint Series is about to be upon us. Brzezinski knows this is just one more chance for him to get his first PRL victory here tonight. Luke Wallace looks to the outside. He'll have to do it here. The long way round on this last lap. It's going to be about the late breakers. Wallace got it wrong a few laps ago, of course, into turn 1. He's gone deep this time too. He's up the curb. He's on the inside though for the next part. If Brzezinski can stay alongside, he might be okay, but no, he can't quite do it. Lindqvist is now so close behind as well. It's all going on in the battle for fourth, but look at this for the lead. Brzezinski's not done just yet. Into the Della Roggia. He's going to look to the inside. He's not going to get that chance. He'll have to go on the outside. He's not going to get that chance either. And Luke Wallace is in prime position with just a minute to go.
Emek Lindqvist must have thought he had a chance at this because he was sitting right in the driver's seat with a bag of popcorn in front of him, just waiting for the gap to open as these two fought away. It never happened, and he's going to have to try and do something into Ascari, into Parabolica, otherwise it's not going to be happening for the number 40 car. The driver who led the opening stages of this race, remember, still looking to try and get the win. I did notice that we saw a couple of drivers drop heavily down the order with the battle for P4 ongoing, and I think one of the main drivers well, actually, I can't remember the name of it, one of the drivers that dropped down, but Nick Ledecky is one of them that is all the way down in the back, and it's given more drivers more chance at the top 5. But in towards Parabolica we go. One more chance for everybody. Luke Wallace looks like he's going to heavily defend this one.
That's what happened to Ledecky, by the way, in the main part of your screen, but into the final corner, it's the experience of Luke Wallace that is going to win out. The only driver of these three to have ever won in the PRL before. Looks like he's going to do it again, but Elliot Brzezinski gets to the inside. He's got a very good run here. Is he alongside, close enough here for the lead? Oh, it's a photo finish. Oh, he's not quite got there. Luke Wallace wins his 4th PRL race, and I would bet that's his closest, a quarter of a tenth of a second. Brzezinski gave that everything, but he just ran out of track.
Now, what an effort from Brzezinski. It looked for all the world that he might just about get the run he needed up towards the line, but I mean, you know, a quarter of a tenth, that cannot be very far. In terms of distance, we're talking centimetres, well, inches, talking in imperial units, but Luke Wallace just about holding on. He did seemingly wait for that final lap, and it paid off. It was a risky strategy, but the 27 will lead the championship out of Monza.
Well, what a great finish Luke Wallace takes another win in the PRL. And by the way, we didn't get to comment on it at the time, but Steve Baker wins in AM, just holding off Chris Stewart. This is what I want to have a look at after the race. Nick Ledecky gets hit there by Jason Allen into all turn one. They all missed I don't think I've ever seen that before. They all missed the chicane in the rest of the group. This is extraordinary, by the way. Have a look at the right-hand side here. All 4 of them missed the chicane. The next group just about get everyone out the way in time. Good, that was close, though. Holland, I think, was disrupted onto a bad line as a result. So Middleton finishes 4th ahead of Wagner, who's in the top 5. And suddenly, we've gone from 3 Fieldinez BMWs in the top 5 to just 1. Remarkable.
Yeah, crazy opening round. Really does open us up to a great season ahead, doesn't it? The action that we saw, not just in the Pro, but in the AM as well, and all the way through the top 10, we were just never short of action. This was the run up to the line. This is how close it got. Just gaining and gaining all the way to the line. It looked like he was just about going to have enough, but I mean, that is a nose. It's a bonnet, really, if that, between the two. And then this is further back as well, more drag racing to the line. Something that we get at Monza. We're not going to get it next week, so we might as well enjoy it while it lasts.
Well, you never know, but no, probably
it's
not.
Le Mans. I mean, the final chicane's probably going to... I mean, there's a chance, but it'll have to be coordinated, I reckon.
Luke Wallace wins the drag race on this occasion for his 4th PRL win. Elliot Budzinski and Emmett Lindqvist round out the podium places, with Cape Middleton winning that amazing battle for 4th place in the end. Conor Wagner beats Jaden Comright in that photo finish for 5th. J.R. Williams, Simon Turio, David Holland and Vincent Trepanier round out the top 10. Outside of that, Eric Palacio finished in 11th ahead of Evan Mackay. A few SimCity racing cars next with Sean Dickinson, Jason Allen and Peter Nodwell. Kevin Simpson finishes 16th ahead of Ethan Bast in his first race in the Mustang. Steve Baker wins in AM ahead of Chris Stewart with Ryan Scalny, who got a good view of that battle for the win. Finishing just behind them. Rich Kelly joins them on the podium with Matthew Brewer finishing 22nd. Joshua Spears a bit at sea there in the Pro Class. He's 23rd on his own. Peter Moller was next with Ryan Reeves, 25th. Andrew Chorostetsky was in 26th ahead of Curry Kirkone, who recovered really well from that lap 1 crash at Ascari. Adam Hemwood, Carl Robertson and Bryce Bombeck round out the top 30. Miles Brown finished 31st, Dakota Knapp and Stephen Dunn, the final drivers within a minute. Steven Saavedra and David Mendonca, Eric Fox, Jack Poliak and Nick Ledecky were the final drivers on the lead lap. Ledecky limping to the line there by the looks of things. Jeremy Listerton finishing 1 lap down. Wesley Price was 4 down. 5 down for Paul Espina and Devin Brock, who did make it to the end. Chris Long was 7 down. Jack Hedgecock didn't make it to the end, neither did Will Borland, Calvin Mint or Jason Finch, although they will still score points, I think, at least the top end of those for completing enough laps. But we'll have confirmation of that in the standings in 1 week time. Let's chat first of all, though, to the race winner, Luke Wallace, by just 1/4 of a tenth of a second. Welcome in, Luke. Good to have you with us. Tell us about that last lap. It was exciting for us to watch. It was a photo finish, had everything as far as we're concerned. What was it like sitting in the car, being part of that leading battle at the end?
Yeah, well, I knew that going to the last lap, I had to be P1 for the start of it. So going to turn 1, I just had to send it, and luckily the guy in front was fuel saving the entire race, I noticed. So a good few times into turn 1, I was able to dive. Sometimes I opted not to, but yeah, and then down into Ascari, I just downshifted one too many times, not thinking, and that ruined my exit. And so it ended up really being really close between us.
2-part question, second of all. Were you disappointed? Well, I better know the answer to this. Were you disappointed / expecting to come out behind Budzinski, first of all, out of the pit stop phase? And then second of all, once you had done, was that the plan all along, to stay behind and then get onto the lead on that last lap?
Yeah, so I kind of assumed that he would have a really quick pit stop because of seeking the fuel saving. So I kind of expected it, but I didn't expect, I think it was Emmett that ended up having a longer pit stop. Don't know what happened to him. But yeah, and then once he pulled out in front of me, I realized, okay, I can stay with him. If I can maybe keep it within 0.3 or so for the last lap, then I can dive into turn 1 and hopefully keep the lead from there.
I can tell you, Emmett slipped through his box, which is why he dropped from first to fourth. So there you go. Congratulations on the win there yourself, and thanks for coming to chat to us.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks very much. Luke Wallace, the winner tonight in the GT3 Sprint Series. Elliot Brzezinski finishing in second position. Luke, we just chatted to Luke there, Elliot, and he said he suspected you of fuel saving throughout the entirety of the race, including in that second stint towards the flag. Was that the case? Were you struggling for fuel?
Yeah, I mean, the hope was to save enough fuel to jump those two in the pits, which ultimately worked out, but I think it was about 5, maybe 6 laps to go. I got the fuel number and it was all good, so I think the last 5 laps were full push to the end.
Correct me if I'm wrong here, but our records show you having not won a PRL race just yet. Just how badly are you waiting for that victory now, and how what are the chances, I should say, it comes in this season?
Well, I mean, this was the first PRL race I've done thus far, so it's been a short career so far, but pretty strong. I think the vets just had too much straight line speed for us. You know, as soon as I saw Luke kind of catching up on the straightaway, they were a little bit quicker there, and then I think they had a little bit better brakes than the BMW. So I was just hoping and praying. I'm actually kind of surprised at how close it got at the finish line there.
There you go. I wasn't expecting the answer as to why you hadn't won before to be so simple, but there you go. Thanks for coming to chat to us, and congratulations on your podium tonight.
Yeah, thank you. And I mean, it's a shame for the other 2 Phil Dennis cars. I think Jaden and Nick were quite close at the end, and then just you know, they got hit off a little bit, but I think it's a good start for the team. Thank you.
Yeah. Absolutely, and that team's championship, of course, will be something we'll monitor throughout as well. Elliot Brzezinski, second place here tonight in the PRL GT3 Sprint Series. I just got being a bit slow there. Here we go. Emmett Lindqvist is the driver I'm trying to bring in, because he finished in third, just behind the 2 we just interviewed. Emmett, welcome in. Good to have you with us. How much are you ruining that pit lane sequence, which saw you go from first to fourth?
You know, I think it was pretty dumb on my end. Not much to say there. It was really just a big mistake there. I think the tires were a little worn. I just cooked it, and I got stuck behind P4, I think, which was Nick, for a little bit, and had a little bit more work to do to get back in contention.
Yeah, it, of course, did give you that extra few hurdles to step over before you could really challenge for the lead. I mean, Elliot just said to us there that he felt the Corvette was too strong in a straight line for a BMW to have really won here tonight. I mean, on a different night, he certainly could have won. On a different night, you certainly could have won as well in that battle. But first of all, is that straight line speed a real strength of this Corvette? Is that something you can carry forward into Le Mans next week?
I sure hope so. I mean, the straight line speed is pretty good, but as you saw throughout the course of the race, it was hard to keep the car steady. And I was sliding all over the place. I felt like I was really wearing out the tires without the downforce. So I'm really dreading Le Mans when we get to the Porsche curves, and hope I don't send it into a wall.
Well, hopefully not. We'll see you there, though, in 1 week's time. Thanks for coming to chat to us, and congratulations on third.
Appreciate it.
Thanks very much. Emmett Lindqvist there in third tonight. All miles ahead, by the way, of the AM battle, which was going on for 19th overall, but 18th overall, excuse me. But more importantly, Steve Baker, the AM class winner. Congratulations. We didn't get to see a lot of your battle, unfortunately, because there was so much going on all throughout the field. But you seem to have Chris Stewart behind you for pretty much the entire race, or indeed directly in front of you for the entire race. You were locked together. How was the battle?
Yeah, it was, like you said, a close one. Me and Chris were pretty much right next to each other the whole race, like you said, and just went for the undercut by a lap and was able to get out front there in turn 1 and just try to play it safe the rest of the time and stay there.
Something that was interestingly different about this race compared to the fixed one that we watched just prior to this one was the fact that the AM battle was very much in the midfield rather than actually towards the front of the overall win, which they were in the previous race. How much did those pro drivers around you in the midfield sort of affect the battle? Were they sort of there but not really affecting things, or did they make a difference?
Yeah, I think we got off to a slow start, so that definitely affected it, but I think once it got strung out, it was all right. It seemed like the whole field was pretty close all race, so not a lot of space to create between each car. So just managing traffic and keeping the car clean.
Well, congratulations on keeping the car clean and winning here tonight at Monza, and thanks for coming to chat to us.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks very much, Steve Baker, the winner in AM tonight. That is it for our interviews. That's it for our racing here tonight in the PRL GT3 Fixed and Sprint Series. A great start to the season here at Monza. We'll be back, of course, at Darren in a week's time on the 1st of October for Le Mans, starting at 8:30 Eastern. That's going to be a great second part to our season. Much similar in the attributes that you're going to need to win round there as the ones we had for tonight.
Yeah, and a different kind of circuit in terms of it's a very long lap, isn't it? I mean, we're going to be talking more than 4 minutes in terms of a lap, which means that particularly in the opening series, we're not going to get to 10 laps. And moves are going to have to be made quite effectively. A lot of the time during the races are going to be spent going down the Mulsanne. It's going to eat away into any kind of real racing time, wheel-to-wheel action that we're going to be able to get in the races. So drivers are going to have to be efficient with their moves, but I don't think the field spread is going to be too wide. At the end of that race we've just seen in the sprint series, 30 seconds covered the top 24 after 40 minutes worth of racing. So I think it's going to be quite frantic next week, and the gaps are really not going to open up, particularly in the opening lap, until we get towards the Porsche curves.
Very much looking forward to it. As it says there, 8:30 Eastern is when to join us for coverage of the PRL GT3 Fixed and Sprint Series for round number 2. Still 2 more nights of racing to come on RaceSpotTV in the Precision Racing League this week. Very much hope that you'll join us for those as well. But for now, from myself, Ian O'Leary, Darragh Thacker and Hugo Louise behind the cameras, it's goodbye for now, and we'll see you tomorrow night.